On Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Oh, hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel, you know, I've got some people coming in saying, it's not me and my panel, it's my panel and I. Go away. Me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza. Before we get started, though, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Huge crowds are marching through central London and Glasgow, demonstrating against the war in Gaza. Thousands of people taking part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protest, demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, the gathering has reached the US Embassy, where a stage has been set up for speeches. Earlier, officers warned a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime after the counter-terrorism SAR said the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. The Met Police says the protests in London have cost the force more than £32 million over the past 5 months. Meanwhile, the head of Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also said to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. It's hoping to leave Cyprus this weekend. That's after the UK, US and the EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor with a temporary port to be built off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. In other news, 2 MPs have used a social media post to demand more defence spending in further signs of tension within the Tory party. Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Security Minister Tom Tugendhat published an article appearing to criticise the absence of funds in the budget for defence. They're calling for an increase in spending to at least 2.5% of GDP, citing global risks posed by countries such as Russia and China. 2 mothers of 2 teenagers killed in Nottingham say they've lost faith in the justice system. Baldo Calacone was handed a hospital order for manslaughter by diminished responsibility after stabbing 19-year-old students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, as well as school caretaker Ian Coates in June last year. The teenagers' parents have now criticised the police and Crown Prosecution Service, telling The Times they felt foolish for thinking they would see justice properly served. A London fertility clinic has had its licence to operate suspended due to significant concerns about the unit. The Telegraph newspaper says the centre had been reported to the police over fears embryos were being destroyed. The Homerton Fertility Centre in East London admitted errors in its freezing processes had led to some embryos either not surviving or being undetectable. The suspension means the unit will not be able to accept any new bookings for treatment, but existing patients can still access its services. A new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. The fathers of murdered police officers, PC's Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as both humbling and overwhelming.
I'm very pleased and for all the police that lost their lives in service, that they're now getting recognition by the state. And for all the families involved, it'll be a privilege to have them.
It's been nearly 3 years campaigning for me, and you know, for it finally to be announced, it's I think in one respect it's humbling but overwhelming, but so pleased for everybody, and not just the police officers as well, as we found out, it's for everybody in public service, and that'll mean a lot for those families, I think.
And Meghan Markle says she suffered hateful and cruel online abuse while she was pregnant. Speaking at an event in Texas, she criticised the toxicity and lack of humanity on the internet and across parts of the media.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty.
And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It is 5 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel, and it's time to mock the week. And what a busy one it's been. One full of anticipation of Jeremy Hunt's budget, which sadly was a bit of a damp squid. On Wednesday, Jeremy deployed it with a lot of promises like removing the national insurance tax after the election, so that's not going to happen. Pensioners now face a £1,000 hit, and he's stolen one of Labour's worst policies, removing the non-dom status, thereby unsettling many wealthy voters. Their loss could end up being a net loss, not if, but when they all flee the UK. Talk about isolating your core audience.
From April the 6th, employee national insurance will be cut by another 2p from 10% to 8%. Self-employed national insurance will be cut from 8% to 6%. It means an additional £450 a year for the average employee, or £350 for someone self-employed.
In the meantime, whilst Meghan Markle appears to be scrabbling about for yet another PR company, apparently with the task of cleaning up her image in the UK, good luck with that, Princess Catherine has deployed her best PR machine ever, her uncle Gary Goldsmith, who's been dishing the dirt on the dastardly Montecito duo. Sadly, his time in the house came to an abrupt end and he was booted off the show yesterday, but not before affirming what many thought about the Sussexes.
For a father to see two beloved sons warring that way is heartbreaking.
I genuinely think that they should take the titles away. Take the titles.
Do you?
Yeah.
Meghan complains again on International Women's Day.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty, it's cruel.
Just don't read it then. Anyway, you can talk. More in my monologue. Indian Willoughby calls the police because he was called a he by J.K. Rowling, which is biologically and grammatically correct. He is a he because he is a man. He called that a hate crime. I call it the truth.
So you reported J.K. Rowling
I have
to the police?
reported J.K. Rowling to the police.
No further action was taken, by the way. And more rats leaving the sinking Tory ship as Theresa May decides enough is enough and announces that she will be stepping down after the next general election, whenever that is. But who can forget that disastrous speech?
All its diversity, compassion and strength that was shared around the globe. 10 years after Northern Rock, our economy is back on track. The deficit is back to pre-crisis levels. Sounds as if my voice isn't on track. Our opponents flirt with a foreign policy of neutrality and prepare for a run on the ground. Some people say we've spent too much time talking about Jeremy Corbyn's past.
She lost her voice, the letters fell off the wall behind her, words failed. Literally, between that and a hustler, she may have danced on the stage, but she limped off it. And I failed the North Face anti-racism quiz, which is quite handy, but I managed to get myself on the front of the Daily Mail. It's been a mucky old week. Coming up, GB News presenter Darren Grimes will be making light of this week's top stories in Muck of the Week. Then at 3:15 we'll be covering the pro-Palestine marches taking place across the UK and crossing live to Israel to hear the latest from performer and mystifier Uri Geller. At 3:35, Dr. Rennie Hoderkamp will be live to discuss whether the effects of menopause have been overblown. And James Mathewson is in the political spotlight this week as he joins me to shine a light on this week's top political stories. That's coming up. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. So joining me to Muck the Week is GB News presenter Darren Grimes. Grimy Grimes, grimy Darren.
Hiya, Nana.
Yeah, you're grimy.
I am very, incredibly,
right,
especially on the weekend, Nana.
Anyway. So Darren Grimes, what do you make of? Did you listen to the budget? Did it shout at you and say this is a good thing for the Tory party? Have they announced anything that?
Absolutely not, and the polls reflect that people are just so completely disillusioned. You know, Reform are only 5 points behind the Tories now. Tories at 20% in some opinion polls. To me, right, it was fiddling whilst Rome burns, right? It was focusing on a 2p national insurance tax cut. They were talking about scrapping national insurance altogether. Well, listen, you had an 80-seat majority, mate. What have you done with it, right? It's been sweet naff all. And I'm afraid to say that the British people are just losing patience. A 2p national insurance cut, they're not going to feel that with inflation at levels we've experienced over the last year or so. So
it's only helping those in work as well. So
yes, exactly. And I think it was unfair for some commentators, and dare I say there are far too many of them, who say pensioners need to start paying their fair share. Pensioners already pay tax. I think that's something that's forgotten all too often. We have this vision in our head of pensioners sat in wealthy mansions, you know, millions of pounds worth in assets, sat there with all sorts of taxpayer benefits, but they are actually taxpayers if they earn over a certain amount. So I just don't buy that they're living in a land of milk and honey. There are struggling pensioners out there. I think the only funny thing from the budget was Jeremy Hunt's basically his jibe at Angela Rayner over her capital gains tax potentially being liable for £1,000 after she sold her ex-council house that she bought under right to buy, a policy, Nana, that she, by the way, now opposes. She wants to pull up the ladder behind her and deny everybody else, like my mother, who bought her ex-council house under right to buy. So I thought, no, it was a missed opportunity, and I'm afraid now they were in Last Chance Saloon. Now they're, you know, drinking at the bar, ready for the bar to go down with them, I'm afraid. They'll be under the bar.
It's really, you know, and the thing is, for a lot of people, they are Conservative voters.
Yeah.
They support the Conservative Party. But when you listen to any of the commentary on the radio or anything. Normal people just talking, saying, I just can't vote for them.
He opened his speech by saying £1 million for a Muslim war memorial.
I know. What was he thinking? If you're going to do that, which I don't think you need to do, and as Nigel Farage pointed out, all the war dead are buried in the same place. We are all the same. We are united in death. There shouldn't be one race or one group above another. It's not necessary. £1 million, and you kick it off with that. I don't know. I just don't know what they were thinking with that. This is almost as bad as Theresa May when she talked about fox hunting, when it's like, well, let's just don't fox hunt.
Just why bother, you know? Why? We already have Commonwealth War memorials, which is right and proper. We already celebrate the fact that if you are here in this country, you're a British national, right? If you've been here for generations, if you've served in the British Army, you're a British national. I don't understand why we need to segregate people, especially in an age of increasing secular tension, where religious sectarianism, with the election of George Galloway, is becoming all too frequent. So I just think this is the wrong move, and the Tories are being appeasers, and it won't help them.
Well, of course, George Galloway will be being interviewed on GBNews. I think it's at 6 o'clock after my show tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Neil Oliver will be taking him on. They do talk a lot. I know I've seen some of his podcasts and things. And I think George Galloway's right, that there will be smaller parties. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion for the Labour Party.
Well, we'll see.
At all.
It's going to be interesting times.
At all. But on a slightly lighter note, as we move on with Meghan Markle, who appears to have dropped her PR company, or they've dropped her. We'll come to her in a minute. But Gary Goldsmith, have you been watching any of Big Brother?
I have. I've caught a bit of it, Nana, yes. And I actually think the royal family, the Buckingham Palace especially, will be breathing a sigh of relief with him being booted out.
Why?
Because actually, I think, basically, he suggested that if Kate announces anything whilst he's in there, he'll then, do a sort of tell-all on what's been going on and her illness and all the rest of it, having spoken to her mother and all the rest of it. So I think Buckingham Palace will have been on tenterhooks, sort of absolutely living life in peril, fearing what he's going to say. He called for Meghan and Harry to lose their titles. Now, you and I can say that, but a member, albeit a distant member of the royal family, saying
but he's not
that's
really.
news.
He's not a member of the royal
family.
family.
I know, he's not.
He's a normal person, so he can say he has the similar
You say that, but then he's marketing himself. What I found him to be quite an arrogant, narcissistic
But he's clever.
man.
He's clever. He's got his own business. He's got his own money. He's rich.
He's made money.
Yeah,
absolutely good for him. But he was saying things like, I'm a hated man in Britain. I'm sorry, I didn't know who he was, and I doubt many viewers and listeners knew who he was either. I don't think you are a hated man in Britain.
Maybe he's talking about the royal family.
Well, potentially.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. And now, the next thing that I talked about was Meghan Markle complaining on International Women's Day. I don't know whether you saw any of her speech.
Yeah.
That was quite funny because she was on a roll and then this woman interrupted her. It was really quite funny.
I mean, you would have to, right? And let's get you up on stage, Nana, next International Women's Day, and you can put her in her place. But honestly, I think this is a case of, well, frankly, how dare she say that? Because this is a woman, right, who in the final years of the late Duke of Edinburgh and, of course, Her Majesty the Queen's life, where Her Majesty the Queen, in some reports, had blood cancer. And the Duke of Edinburgh, of course, was very getting on in his twilight years. And she ruined those years, right? Her and Harry made their lives an utter misery through their own selfishness, kiss and tell through books and all the rest of it. And she wants to talk about hate online. What about all the hate that she put out about the royal family?
I know.
Accusing them of bigotry, racism, all the rest of it. She made their lives a living hell. So turn the other one. What a hypocrite, right? How dare she say anything like that? So I don't think anyone in this country... You said at the start there, Nana, she's hired a PR team to try and revive her image in the United Kingdom. Forget that, mate. You've got more chance of reviving, I don't know. It's going to be a complete nightmare for her in attempts to do that. And these people will be laughing all the way at the bank because it ain't going to happen.
They will. Another company will bite the dust, obviously, having taken a lot of money off them, and they still not... I think they'll end up quite broke if they're not careful. Now, what about India Willoughby?
Yeah.
Because... you don't have to call somebody by the pronoun they want you to call them. It's down to your... Somebody can't tell you how that you should address someone. They can guide you, but they can't force you. And it's certainly not a hate crime, especially when you are the thing that they are calling you.
Well, Labour would actually like to...
Exactly, that's
if they get into government, they're talking about actually making misgendering and misogyny and all the rest of it, hate crimes and all these other things. But J.K. Rowling got involved in this, of course, and actually said India Willoughby is a man, biological fact. immutable fact. You can't change that. That's the way things are. Now, for daring to call a spade, she's been dragged through the press again. Now, actually, if you ask me, India Willoughby is a parody of what a woman is, right? This is an act. Now, you can wear what you want, and J.K. Rowling herself has said this, you can wear what you want, you can call yourself whatever you want, but you can never change reality. You can never change what is immutable scientific fact. And for saying that, she is dragged through the press. Her name is muddied and all the rest of it. Now, she's big enough, rich enough to be able to take the hit, but I find it so admirable that she is choosing to do this, because around dinner tables, in the book circuit world, in the media world, television world, she's been dragged by the former stars of Harry Potter, of course, whose careers she made, for saying things like this. But India Willoughby is just trying to do this for 2 minutes of fame, and it's working for her. That's what
have you seen him without the wig?
That's what I don't like. Well, yes, indeed. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Because it's a parody of what a woman is. A woman is a biological reality, and that's what makes me a woman, being able to have children or being able to have the facility within me, or a womb, or the things, or menstruation, and also, you know, all the things that happen, menopause. These are the biological realities that make a woman, that make us different from a man.
But you saying that, you and I saying that, and J.K. Rowling, we're going to get put in prison, right? We're all going to be in the clink together, and what a time we will have.
I know, but they call it gender critical. But which prison? I might just decide I'm a man and go to a man's prison. I might have a great time. And finally, I failed the North Face quiz.
Yeah, brilliant piece, Nana.
You liked it.
Did you get your 20% discount?
I didn't get it was almost as though they blocked me because I said, there's a comment bit which you probably shouldn't comment. I was polite. I took a picture of my comment. I said, this doesn't feel right because you're forcing me to say what you want me to say and I can't move on otherwise. And then I got to the next page and it wouldn't let me go any further. Even when I logged out and looked back, it was the same thing. It was a loop. I was forced to watch all the videos again. I thought if I was there for another 20 minutes, I gave up in the end.
And this is all about diversity, equity and inclusion, right? It's DEI. And this is actually putting the corporate identity and the corporate shareholder responsibilities, apparently, ahead of actually making money and actually serving the audience with a good product. These jackets are pretty expensive jackets. If they want to give us all 20% off, you know, why don't they just reduce the prices a little bit?
Well, that's what I thought. And if you look at it, if it's true that ethnic minorities are predominantly less well off than their white counterparts, well, they're selling a jacket for 500 quid for. And the reason we don't go on the slopes is too damn cold.
But why is it racist to suggest that actually if black people primarily want to live in cities and all the rest of it, why on earth is that racist? I don't understand.
Darren Grimes, it's not, but stay tuned. After 6, Darren Grimes will be with you with the Saturday 5. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nana.
That was Darren Grimes. We were mucking the week. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, is the menopause over-medicalised? You've seen a lot of stars going, oh, the menopause. Is it really? Is it that bad? I'll be speaking to a GP to find out more whether the Davina effect has overblown the negative effects. But up next, the latest from the pro-Palestine marches taking place across Britain today, as we also hear from Uri Geller. He's live in Israel. This is GB News.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
Kinsey, great to have you back on the show. Now, listen, we're not slated to talk about the Prince Harry story, but I've kind of surprised a few people by suggesting that I think he should have armed royal protection when he's in Britain. What do you think?
Well, they aren't my tax dollars that are paying for Prince Harry's protection, but I agree with you. I think that he should feel safe, and he should feel safe to bring his family back to see his father, if that's the case.
Well, his stepmother, Kinsey, Queen Camilla, gets a well-deserved break. Tell me more.
That's right. Queen Camilla has no engagements on her agenda this week, with the Times reporting that she will spend a few days of downtime with the king. Camilla has been working overtime to support the monarchy. Just last month, she repeatedly drove over 6 hours to a royal engagement after her flight was grounded because she reportedly did not want to let down her husband. She will resume engagements on March 11th, representing the king and leading the royal family for the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey. A source told the Times, although she was not expecting to find herself in the position of leading the family, the Queen is absolutely prepared to do whatever needs to be done for the institution. And can I just say, speaking of Harry, I think the fact fact that Queen Camilla is seen as leading the family is significant proof that Prince Harry would not return to temporarily support the family, because Camilla's elevated position is likely not something sitting well with him right now. He loved Queen Elizabeth II. He likely resents the idea of Queen Camilla. And we know that that's a position he felt like his mother should be in.
Most definitely. He was very nasty about Queen Camilla in his book Spare.
He was. So I imagine that the idea of her leading the family is something he has a hard time digesting.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome aboard. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. And don't forget as well, if you haven't already done it, download the GB News app. It's been updated and it looks fabulous. And you can check out all the programmes here on the channel. Right, so once again, we look again to the pro-Palestinian protests. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of them. They're filing the streets of cities across the country, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And now Britain's counter-extremism czar, Robin Simcox, says that these very protests are turning London into a no-go zone for Jews. And this is quite clear. Many of my Jewish friends, they will not go into London or where there is a march, as he slams the government for letting extremists go unchallenged for way too long. Right, so joining me now is GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Tony, good to talk to you. Where are you and what's been happening?
Good afternoon, Nana. Well, the protest has now been in gun. Quite a long event today, it has to be said. There was discussions and talks going on from just after 11:30 today, and that carried all the way through till early afternoon, when a kind of small march, almost as a half-time march, if you like, walked around some of the streets in the city centre here in Glasgow, and then returned back to George Square, where I'm just now. Behind me, you can see the proud building of Glasgow City Council, the City Chambers, on George Square, and indeed more talks resumed. Now, there was quite a lot of people I noticed here today in face coverings, particularly these new face masks that I've seen, very much like 90s plastic, poor quality Halloween masks, only they were covered with the Palestine flag, but still somehow quite eerie when they're looking at you dead in the eye, rather unsettling. And of course, there was the few chants, which we've come to recognise now as being taken as heavily anti-Semitic by some people from the river to the sea. But quite a small police presence today, and they certainly weren't keen to get involved too much. Police Scotland have almost followed in the footsteps of the Met Police, as to say that they're going to stand back, and unless significant events occur, they're not going to get involved. Police Scotland, of course, earlier this week reporting that they're no longer able to react to every crime, especially those that there are no evidence, such as CCTV, etc. So, altogether, relatively peaceful day here. But, it was interesting. At one point, someone had obviously done a quick Google and worked out who I was, didn't take too kindly to the channel and proceeded to go around all the stall holders, warning them effectively of my presence, which is a bit disheartening, to be honest, because as reporters, as GB News video journalists all around the country, it's our job just to report the news, certainly not to make it. But on the whole, everyone is extremely friendly, as you might expect. But these marches, this is now 5 months in, week after week. We're lucky in Glasgow because it's contained here in the pedestrianised area of George Square. But I can only imagine, listening to Catherine earlier on, how hectic it is down there in London.
Yeah, well, listen, Tony, thank you very much. Shame that they are so anti-GB News. They've probably never watched it. That's usually the way. Thank you very much, Tony Maguire. He's there in Glasgow. He's our Scotland reporter. Right, well, joining me now from Israel to discuss the conflict there is Mr. Fire Uri Geller. Uri, thank you so much for joining me. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So talk to me, what's been happening?
Okay, first of all, Nana, don't worry, I'm not going to show that rude sculpture again. Do you remember last week when I showed to you with this figurine? Well, I won't show it again, but if anyone wants to see the clip, go to my Twitter page and you will see the rude figurine there. Now, Nana, last week I had a message for George Galloway, and this week I have a message for the British Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. Nana, please let me deliver it. So here we go. David Cameron, what are you playing at? I'm shocked by what you have said about Israel. Whose side are you on? You have criticized Israel over aid. You have warned Israel that your patience is running thin, and you have called for a pause in the fighting. Now, look, Lord Cameron, what planet are you living on? You think Britain is still in charge here? I'm sorry to say, that ended in 1948. Let me educate you. Britain needs Israel much more than Israel needs you. Remember, the jihadists are already there in the UK. They're taking over the streets of London. You just said it, Nana, and you interviewed your man from the street, and they are even electing your MPs. Now, you know, Nana, I've met most prime ministers in the UK, in England. This is me and David. But, and by the way, I was shocked when I saw this on Twitter. This is, I mean, a pro-Palestinian protester destroys a painting of Lord Balfour at the University of Cambridge. I don't know if you spoke about this.
Yeah,
but this
we've
is
seen
shocking.
that. Yeah, it's disgraceful.
He's tearing. Now, Nana, there is something very important I want to tell you and your viewers. You will hear it nowhere else. Now, people are very distracted at the moment by the war in Gaza. We all know that. But I want to warn you. I want to warn everyone, you and your viewers, don't take your eyes off Iran. I have predicted many things in my life. Did you know I publicly said that Gamal Abdel Nasser will die? He was the leader of Egypt. I said it in an auditorium before it was known by anyone. I announced it on a stage in front of hundreds of people. People thought I went mad. And now I'm warning you about Iran. This week, and I'll finish with this. This week, one of Israel's best-known journalists, his name is Nadav Eyal, reported that 3 security officials in Israel all informed him that Iran is racing to get, this is important, to get components for the nuclear bomb. These people know what they're talking about. I have a very, very bad feeling about this. Look, Nana, one of the most respected think tanks in the world, they're called the Institute for Science and International Security. They have said Iran's nuclear threat is an extreme danger. I'm telling you, the world must wake up, take out Iran's nuclear program, or we are facing Armageddon.
You think, Uri? Well, we hope we're not, you know, we're hoping that people will see sense and behave in a normal way. And David Cameron would probably say that he's trying to work in the best interests of the people of Gaza because he's seen a lot of death and destruction. And we are with him in that respect. But Hamas, hand back the hostages and stop firing the missiles. Uri Geller, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That's Uri Geller there live in Tel Aviv. This is GB News on the way political spotlight. I'll be joining me to shine a light, former Labour Party advisor James Mathewson. I'll be getting his thoughts on George Galloway and also Sir Keir Starmer. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Ray.
Thanks, Nana. 3:32, our top stories this hour. Huge crowds are marching through central London and Glasgow, demonstrating against the war in Gaza.
Free! Palestine! Free! Palestine! Free! Palestine!
Well, thousands have been taking part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protest, demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, the gathering has reached the US Embassy, where a stage has been set up for speeches. Earlier on, the Met Police warned that a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime after the counter-terrorism czar said the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. The Met says London protests have cost £32 million over the past 5 months. Well, meanwhile, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also said to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. It's hoping to leave Cyprus this weekend. That's after the UK, US and the EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor with a temporary port to be built off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. 2 MPs have used a social media post to demand more defence spending in further signs of tension within the Tory party. Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Security Minister Tom Tugendhat published an article appearing to criticise the absence of funds in the spring budget. They're calling for an increase in spending to at least 2.5% of GDP, citing global risks posed by countries such as Russia and China. A new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. The fathers of murdered police officers PC Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as both humbling and overwhelming. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code. It's on your screen right now, or why not go to gbnews.com/alerts. OK, back to Nana.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
I've got an idea. I think that all 30-year-olds should be given £10,000 from the banks of baby boomers. We've got a situation in this country now where millennials are the first generation in modern times expecting to be poorer than their parents. We, as 30-year-olds like me, are half as likely to own a house as people my age 30 years ago. In fact, the cost of a home in Britain compared to average incomes has as big a gap today as it did, wait for it, in the 1860s. It is a Dickensian situation.
Now, I'm sorry about the housing crisis for your generation.
You're not, though, are you?
No,
because you're profiting from it.
I'm profiting from it. Don't be ridiculous.
The house prices now, compared to that period.
If this is the case, Benjamin...
Have incomes gone up that fast?
To penalise and punish the elderly when they have worked all their lives to put into the system and say it's your fault, whingy, whiny, we're going to be envious...
But no, we're being punished.
No, well, by the politics, so be the change you want to see in the world.
Taxes, I am actually, and I'm about to tell you about the change I want to see in the world.
Oh, you're good, as long as you're not whining about it.
I'm going to stop whining about it, but we are being taken advantage of at the moment to profit, to help the old. Most of taxpayers' money is spent in 2 departments, the NHS, so the health department, and the Department for Work and Pensions. Those departments disproportionately serve the older population. Now, I've got no issue with that, but let's not pretend that it is not young working people that is paying for the public services for old people. So actually, we are having it hard, and I just look at the future, and we see a future of perpetually higher taxes to pay for this increasing ageing population, a shrinking labour force, and you're here saying we've got nothing to worry about.
The young stop voting for mass immigration parties. The young stop voting for parties that don't build houses.
Immigrants actually pay taxes, pensioners don't.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back if you've just tuned in. Where have you been? It's all right. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's coming up to 37 minutes, or 38 minutes even, after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, experts are warning against the menopause being treated like a disease rather than a normal part of ageing. In a paper published in the Lancet Medical Journal, academics argue the natural hormonal change that typically affects women between age 45 to 55 has been over-medicalised. And in recent years, celebrities like Davina McCall, she's gone, have really brought attention to the negative experiences that some women in the menopause. Although that's not to say that she hasn't done a good thing by making people talk about it a bit more. And, of course, treatment options like hormone replacement therapy or HRT. Experts are warning that commercial interests are leading to menopause awareness campaigns being hijacked to sell services and products. Well, what's new? So is the menopause over-medicalised? Joining me to discuss, Dr. Renee Hulderkamp. Hello, Renee. Thank you for joining me.
Hi,
Did I say your name right?
Nearly. Hunderkamp.
Hunderkamp. Ah, Hunderkamp. There we go.
Everyone just calls me Dr. Renee.
OK, Dr. Renee. That's a lot easier, actually. So, Dr. Renee, what do you think about it? Do you believe that some of these celebrities are kind of making it out to be a big old deal when actually the majority of women don't actually with it?
Well, I hate to correct you, Nana, straight away on our call, but 85% of women, as they go through menopause, will experience one of the many symptoms, and there are at least 40. And I think people think of hot flushes, so if they don't get hot flushes, they haven't got symptoms. But it's far broader than that. They get brain fog, joint pain, fatigue, low libido, tinnitus, things like this, skin itching, skin products that skin surface. They feel like they've got insects crawling under their skin. The list of symptoms for menopause is actually far wider than you can imagine. But I think there's a much more important part of this. Once women get past menopause and lose their estrogen, yes, it's a natural aging process. I don't dispute that for a second. But in the past, we didn't really know how to treat it. We didn't know what to do. And women just fell by the wayside. Marriages ended, women left work, they couldn't cope anymore, and life was pretty miserable. Low mood, which starts in 40s, accompanying this, led women to depression that was never diagnosed for what it was. But now we have a treatment. Now we have different types of treatment that are really quite safe, much safer than the contraceptive pill in most cases. And if you consider that after the age of menopause, cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer of women. Women develop their cardiovascular disease after the menopause. So they might sail through menopause, but quietly, without symptoms, their heart is developing disease. Women that start HRT close to their menopause and under the age of 60 60 have a lower all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease than any other women who don't have HRT.
Yeah, but
and actually,
I was just going to say that
more than statins.
Well, yeah, but that's true. But you said that, so 85% of the women have at least one of the symptoms. But that's one. I mean, you know, sometimes I do think that these celebrities pitch it as though it's a nightmare. When the one symptom that you might have might be relatively mild. I've been through the menopause. There were a few symptoms, but it wasn't, you know, show-stopping and life-destroying. In actual fact, for someone like me, I have an autoimmune condition which is triggered things like estrogen. So for me, the menopause was actually a calming down of all of those things. So I'm just, you know, putting to you that whilst there are, you know, there's a lot of women. Half of my friends have been through it and not much. And there are some who are really struggling with it.
Yes, but also, Nana, there are the silent parts of menopause. So as soon as you go through menopause, even your bone density starts to really fall away. And broken bones, as women get older, kill them. A third of women that break a hip will die within a year. Those are the stats. Women get dementia twice as often as men. HRT probably prevents that. Now, if your thyroid started slowing down, and 1 in 50 women's thyroid will start slowing down, you wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to treat it. You would take thyroxine, another hormone.
But we don't have... You said that HRT probably prevents dementia, but we don't really know that. We know that it may have an effect on it, but we don't know that it probably prevents it.
We do have pretty good data now that HRT is protective against dementia. There's pretty good data now, Nana. It's evolving
like
all
a full
the time.
protection. I might just take it anyway. Although I think
it's
I'm
not full
already
protection.
there.
Well, there is an argument for taking HRT as a lifestyle. Women who take HRT die less than women of all-cause mortality than those who don't. But having said that, I'm going to say this. Nobody forces a woman to have HRT. This is about choice. So someone should be presenting women with the benefits, the risks, and there are small risks. Of course there are, as there are with all drugs. We give people statins hand over fist to prevent their cardiovascular disease. Why wouldn't we give it HRT to women? Because it prevents cardiovascular disease.
Well, things... OK, so there are other things, though. So building bone density, if you are agile and fit enough and strong enough, exercise will do that for you. So, do you know what I mean?
Not to the same degree.
Well, it depends what you do. No, I do Ashtanga, very strong yoga, and I'm sure that I've had my scan, my DEXA scan and all those things, and I think that there are other things. We don't always have to be medicalising it, do we? Really?
No, of course we don't have to be medicalising it, but for women, so you have a benefit. Nana, I'm going to say this, please don't be offended. Because of your race, your bones start off much denser than mine.
Because I'm black. Well, there's a benefit. Most black people say there isn't, but for what we're going to believe it, no, I know, I'm teasing
you. And the reason you look much younger than your years is because of the collagen in your skin.
Yes.
You know, so, so you're winning all round. But for some of us, me, because I have a low BMI, I have thyroid disease, my bone density is at massive risk. So I do exercise, I do weight-bearing exercise. I also take HRT because for me, through menopause, my mood and anxiety, and I've never suffered from it in my entire life, was appalling. So that's really important. Don't forget, there's things like libido. You know, a healthy relationship and being able to have sex is really important for women to maintain their mental health and their sex life. There are lots of benefits. But again, it doesn't mean we're medicalising it. What we're saying is, these are the things that go wrong. Here is a solution that you can have if you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Well, listen, Renee, it's really good to talk to you. I enjoyed it. It's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. That is
and
our
I
GP.
wish I had your skin, Nana.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. You'd look a bit odd, though, if it was just on your face. Thank you. That was GP Dr. Renee Hunderkamp there. We're talking about menopause. What do you think? GBviews@gbnews.com. Would be good to hear your views, or maybe you've been through it and it was a nightmare, or maybe it was fine. Coming up, though, my monologue on Meghan and Markle. Next, though, of course, I'm obviously being very nice. Political Spotlight, where joining me to shine a light is former Labour Party speechwriter James Mathewson. This is GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It stays cloudy through the rest of the weekend, further rain at times, still quite breezy too. And looking at the pressure pattern, low pressure sits to the south, introducing this strong east-southeasterly breeze across the country, really noticeable, taking the edge off the temperatures. Outbreaks of rain pushing northwards too, and it is cloudy end to Saturday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy at times across parts of Wales this evening, and then overnight we see a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across eastern parts pushing northwards, but generally for everyone a cloudy night, and that will keep temperatures well above freezing for most. 1 or 2 may get to low single figures in any clearer spells. For the vast majority, a cloudy, damp, grey start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and westward, some of this heavy at times. Could be some brighter breaks developing across the southwest of the UK into the afternoon, but this could trigger 1 or 2 heavy showers. But for most of us, it stays cloudy. The breeze still coming in from the east and making it feel quite chilly. Temperatures generally up to around 10 or 11 Celsius, but feeling more like single figures. Into the new working week, it generally stays quite cloudy still. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle pulling in from the North Sea. A few brighter breaks at times in the west. And over the next few days, it generally stays cloudy further. There could be some rain at times, but a largely cloudy, dry picture. Temperatures rising a little too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 49 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's time for this week's political spotlight. George Galloway has told GB News that small parties are going to radically alter the course of the next election. He believes that his Workers' Party can steal votes away from Labour. Here's what he had to say to Neil Oliver.
The spread of candidates, challengers, new parties, independent candidates, and so on, is now proceeding like wildfire. If I tell you that I have now in my pocket more than 300 prospective parliamentary candidates, all paying their own election expenses, by the way, because we can't pay them, more than 300 Workers' Party parliamentary candidates. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Well, you can watch the full interview tomorrow at 6 p.m. with Neil Oliver. Well, joining me to discuss that and to shine a light is the former Labour Party advisor and speechwriter who authored the book Progressive Pragmatism, James Matthewson. James, thank you very much for joining me. Right, what do you think? Is George Galloway making some valid points there? And do you think he could make headway with his Workers' Party?
I think the phrase that's really telling, Nana, is "in my pocket I have." You would never hear any other politician except George Galloway say that. It's all about him. He thinks what he's got, what he's managed to do, what he's managed to achieve. That's not how party politics works normally, and that's why George Galloway's never been able to stay in a political party for that long. So, you know, it's all about him. It's all about what he can do, how he can change politics. And I just do not believe for 1 second. I mean, we remember the Northern Independence Party. I don't know if you remember them. The Northern Independence Party who were registered in Brighton. of all places, very northern. But they had something like 280 prospective candidates at all stand, and all of them received about 8 votes each. So I don't think there's anything for the Labour Party to be concerned about. When it comes to it, remember that George Galloway is going to want to protect his seat to ensure that he stays in at the next election more than anything else.
But he has made a valid point, and the bottom line is that he wants to attack the Labour Party and take from their votes, and that is exactly the core of voting that he is stealing. He's right there, though. And if he does do this and these things are in his pocket, if he does manage to pull that out, I'm feeling a sea change in how people are voting. Are you not sensing that?
Not for George Galloway's politics, I'm afraid, unfortunately, but I do think there will be people who will be swayed to him. There are people who are politically homeless on the hard left of politics because, the Labour Party has shifted away from that position in recent times. Those of us who believe that that's the right thing to do are pleased about that, but there are many who are not, including the likes of George Galloway, So there will be the likes of people, who would have given their vote to Jeremy Corbyn and his Labour Party, who will now likely give their vote to George Galloway. But I do believe that those people are in such a minority. There's the reason the Labour Party lost in 2017 and 2019, which is what I talked about in my book, Progressive Pragmatism.
You couldn't remember the name of your own book.
I know exactly. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? But when it comes to that being pragmatic and trying to have progressive politics that actually says, OK, we acknowledge not everyone agrees with us. How do we be pragmatic about it? George Galloway has no interest in doing that.
What's going on with Humza Yusuf, sorry. It just rolls off the tongue so naturally. £250,000 that he sort of moved towards so that it would go for the UN instead of, well, I don't know where it would have gone, but there's a lot of talk about it. It's on the front cover of the paper.
Yeah, so up here, I'm in Edinburgh, and up here in Scotland, the SNP are not doing well at all. And it stands to reason, they've been very clever with their language over recent years in separating the Scottish government and its activities from their political party. No other political party could have done that. When we talk about the Tories, we're talking about the government. It's one and the same. But they've managed to keep it separate for a lot of people's minds. People now are seeing exactly what it is because, Humza Yusuf was a health minister who wasn't really covered in glory. And now that he's at the centre of the party and they haven't got Nicola Sturgeon's prestige, whether you like her or not, she is a very successful politician and somebody who has, a lot of profile. Now they haven't got that to rely on. They're just tanking here. And I think we're going to see Labour picking up seats, probably Tories picking up seats from them in some places as well.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how it just literally fragmented. But then there were some very silly things. The whole gender thing, we all saw through that, and that didn't look good. That was really the beginning of the end, in my view. And now, do you think it is time to call an election? Seeing as so many of the politicians, Theresa May is the latest one to throw her hat out of the ring. Is it time just to call a general election and just get on with it?
Yeah, I think there's been such a change now. You're seeing an old guard of politicians who've been there for years saying, I'm done, my time's finished, that's great, I'm going to move on and retire now or do something else. And you're seeing people, who are keen and wait in the wings to come and make a difference. The drummer from Blur, for example, the Labour Party wanting to stand. We're seeing a new wave of politicians who are keen and have the energy. And I don't blame the ones who've been there for the past 5 to 10 years, for being absolutely exhausted after, we've been through a lot politically, wherever you stand on your views, from Brexit right till now, we've been through a lot politically as a country. So I think it is time for a change, and the sooner that happens, the better, because it's inevitable.
Well, listen, James Mathewson, thank you so much for joining us. That's James Mathewson. He gives my political spotlight. Thank you. Well, coming up, I'll be joined by my amazing panel, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza and, of course, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Next, though, my monologue on Meghan Markle. You've heard a lot about her. She's been talking again. She's re-emerged. Hear what I have to say. But first, let's get an update with your weather with Greg Dewhurst.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It stays cloudy through the rest of the weekend, further rain at times, still quite breezy too. And looking at the pressure pattern, low pressure sits to the south, introducing this strong east-southeasterly breeze across the country, really noticeable, taking the edge off the temperatures. Outbreaks of rain pushing northwards too, and it is cloudy end to Saturday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy at times across parts of Wales this evening, and then overnight we see a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across eastern parts pushing northwards, but generally for everyone a cloudy night, and that will keep temperatures well above freezing for most. 1 or 2 may get to low single figures in any clearer spells. For the vast majority, a cloudy, damp, grey start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and westward, some of this heavy at times. Could be some brighter breaks developing across the southwest of the UK into the afternoon, but this could trigger 1 or 2 heavy showers. But for most of us, it stays cloudy. The breeze still coming in from the east and making it feel quite chilly. Temperatures generally up to around 10 or 11 Celsius, but feeling more like single figures. Into the new working week, it generally stays quite cloudy still. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle pulling in from the North Sea. A few brighter breaks at times in the west. And over the next few days, it generally stays cloudy further. There could be some rain at times, but a largely cloudy, dry picture. Temperatures rising a little too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven, and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text prize to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Before we get started, without his glasses.
I've got to go glam for you.
Put them back on.
That's me told.
Let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. Coming up to 1 minute past 4, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories this hour. Huge crowds have been marching through central London and Glasgow, demonstrating against the war in Gaza. Well, thousands took part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protests demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, speeches were made outside of the US Embassy. Earlier on, the Met warned that a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime. That's after the counter-terrorism czar said that the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. Well, meanwhile, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also set to leave Cyprus sometime this weekend. That's after the UK, US and EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor with a temporary port built off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. Well, 2 Tory MPs have used a social media post to demand more defence spending in what's being called further signs of tension within the Tory party. Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Security Minister Tom Tugendhat published an article appearing to criticise the absence of funds in the budget for defence. They're calling for a spending increase to at least 2.5% of GDP, citing global risks posed by countries including Russia and China. The mothers of 2 teenagers killed in Nottingham say they've lost faith in the justice system. Valdo Calocane was handed a hospital order for manslaughter by diminished responsibility after stabbing 19-year-old students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, as well as school caretaker Ian Coates, in June of last year. The teenagers' parents have now criticised the police and the Crown Prosecution Service, telling The Times that they felt foolish for thinking that they would see justice properly served. A London fertility clinic has had its licence to operate suspended due to significant concerns. The Telegraph says the centre had been reported to police over fears that embryos were being destroyed. The Homerton Fertility Centre in East London has admitted errors in its freezing processes, leading to some embryos either not surviving or being undetectable. The suspension means that the unit will not be able to accept any new bookings for treatment, but existing patients can still access its services. A new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. The fathers of murdered PCs, Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester back in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as overwhelming.
I'm very pleased and for all the police that have lost their lives in service, that they're now getting recognition by the state. And for all the families involved, it'll be a privilege to have them.
It's been nearly 3 years campaigning for me, and you know, for it finally to be announced, it's I think in one respect it's humbling but overwhelming, but so pleased for everybody, and not just the police officers as well, as we found out, it's for everybody in public service, and that'll mean a lot for those families, I think.
And finally, Meghan Markle says she suffered hateful and cruel online abuse while she was pregnant. Speaking at an event in Texas, she criticised the toxicity and lack of humanity on the internet and across parts of the media.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty, it's cruel.
For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code. It's on your screen right now, or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back to Nana.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ray. It is fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Oh, God. Meghan Markle is apparently looking to return to the UK and wants to improve her image. If rumours are to be believed, she is in search of yet another PR company. She tagged her comeback onto International Women's Day. Have a listen.
I've said this for so many years, and I hope that it starts to land, but I think we can all agree that representation matters in terms of if you're a young girl and you see yourself in a position of power or strength or leadership, you can believe that that is possible.
She goes on to talk about having someone who looks like you. I would hate to have someone looking like me, a twin. I'd be so jealous, especially if they was a thin one. I think she's tugging on the race card in that speech as well. Then someone interrupts her while she's on a roll and she tells the washing up liquid story again. Then more victimhood.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty.
She just doesn't get it. Actions speak louder than words. Now, whilst I don't wish online abuse on anyone, and sadly, the more well-known you become, the more likely you are to receive it, there is a simple solution. Don't read it. It's not that difficult. And when you're as wealthy and as connected as she is, this should be relatively easy. You can even pay people to do stuff. And actions speak louder than words. But let's be honest, Meghan has used the press whenever it suits her. The reason people are incensed by the pair of them, which it seems they clearly can't work out why, is because of their actions. Climate preaching while taking private jets and smugly telling us we're offsetting our carbon, which we all know is a scam, flying from one place to another on the most polluting vehicle known to man, aircraft. It was heartless to go on Oprah and diss the royal family whilst Prince Philip lay dying. The show was pre-recorded in any case. They could have postponed it. They didn't. It was heartless to leave the door open to an accusation of racism and then correct the record years later, thereby their own admission gaslighting the world and making the Queen's last years a nightmare. It's heartless not seeing a father who has by all counts supported and encouraged and who has fallen seriously ill. Thomas Markle hasn't even met either of his grandchildren, and the King has only met, as far as we know, just one. Forgiveness shows strength of character. Holding a grudge and throwing a wrecking ball is easy. The documentaries, the misery-ridden whinge-fest spare, I got the smaller half of the room in a goddamn castle. You're in a castle. Constant bleating on about their own well-being and mental health, blind to the damage they're doing to others. They're advocates for it. They should know better. I'm afraid no amount of PR can airbrush this behaviour. So I get that you, Meghan, have feelings, but so do the rest of us. And whilst I absolutely deplore bad behaviour on social media, you cannot escape the fact that your behaviour leaves a lot to be desired. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? It says London is becoming a no-go zone for many Jewish people. That is according to the Home Office's independent advisor on extremism, Robert Simcox, who says that they've gone unchallenged for way too long. Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time. Lady Victoria Hervey will be here with the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, says that she suffered hateful and cruel abuse while she was pregnant. She's also hired a UK-based PR expert to help launch her next venture. But is this just trying to salvage her relationship with Britain? And then at 5, it's this week's difficult conversation. Dr. Pam Spur will be live in the studio. That's coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel former Labour Party advisor, Matthew Lala. I couldn't resist.
I'll forgive you.
And also broadcast from columnist Lizzie Cundy. Right, well, I want to start with you, Lizzie Cundy, having met the Duchess of Sussex and having chaperoned her around to meet both.
Well...
And then dropping you.
The Duchess of Diddums. Oh, we're all supposed to feel sorry for her, aren't we? You know, she's had more comebacks, actually, than Frank Sinatra. But the one thing with Meghan, she always wants to do it her way. And her way is playing the victim. Poor me, poor me. I mean, look, we're all against online trolling and bullying. Look, I've had enough of it. I don't read it, you know. I don't read it. You know, if they're talking about me, that's great. That's what I like. I mean, she should be on stage apologising for her own bullying and her terrible hate campaign against her own sister-in-law, Kate. I mean, what she's done there, the lies she's spread, the hateful interviews, which we all had to listen through, I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. And I think she should be on there apologising.
She would say that's her truth, though. So what she said is her truth. So according to her...
It's improved. There wasn't any alleged racist in that family, and I think it's unforgivable. She let the late Queen die thinking there was. And I'm sorry, Meghan, take a leaf out of your own book. Look how you've treated your own flesh and blood. Look how she treated her own father, who's had strokes and heart attacks, hasn't even been invited to Buckingham Palace for a scone and cream and jam.
He's heartbroken.
You know, he's heartbroken. Hasn't even met the grandkids. Take a look at the way your own behaviour. I'm sorry, she's a hypocrite and she needs to apologise.
Matthew Laza.
So I try hard to find nice things to say, and you know, I do think it's important that she uses her platform to promote the cause of International Women's Day and women and girls. But when she said there about women in power and women who had real serious achievements, I wish we were celebrating the achievements of so many strong women who've done so many wonderful things, rather than just marry a prince. I mean, there is some irony there that is how she's got her platform.
But arguably, she was a bit of a star.
Exactly.
She was in Suits.
No,
so,
exactly.
You know,
So what disappoints me, Nana, is that because she had a career beforehand, you know, we thought this was very modern in this modern era. Why isn't she going back to acting? Because she had a platform rather than just appearing at equality and diversity conferences.
Sadly, she was well known in the States. When she came over here, I had to look after her because no one knew who she was, and I had to get her interviewed on the red carpet. And my producer was like saying, "Look, I don't know her." It was really tough, and I helped her. The thing is with Meghan, she always plays the victim. She always says, "Poor me." She never says...
I mean, she's got a skill. Being poor Harry hasn't got any skill. I mean, apart from now he's left the army. But she could. She might not get the lead, but she could be. She could be a bit.
Do you know,
she needs to change the record.
One of those helicopters, like with a learner driver. You only go in the car, but somebody else has taken control, and you think you're driving it.
Yeah, but it's International Women's Day, and there's Harry sitting at the front. I mean, I just think she wears the trousers, obviously, but I'm afraid we're all sick of her whinging and moaning, and there's no PR in the whole wide world that can help her.
Because this is what worries me, is that she's just going to deflect attention from the royal family, who, you know, whatever you think of the concept of royal family, have done a great job since the Queen's death in difficult times, and obviously the King is still, you know, having cancer treatment. You know, never let alone Catherine, who's obviously not very well either. So, you know, we don't need her in this country. She should go to Hollywood and you know, find herself a small part and get back into acting.
What's happened in Hollywood, and my friends have told me, she's desperate to be in with the A-listers. She's desperate for Taylor Swift at the minute, desperate to be her friend. But Taylor is running to the other side of that football pitch that her boyfriend plays on. She can't be near her. No one wants to know them anymore. Their popularity has sunk.
But these women sitting around the table talking with her seemed very, you know, people are amored by her, and a lot of people, you know, because she is so famous.
Yeah, I think they are, particularly in America. I think the title still has that thing, you know, it's like when you're in America and you speak, you don't, you know, even if you don't think you have a particularly lovely accent, I don't, but, you know, somebody goes, "Oh, gee, you've got a beautiful accent." You know, there is that kind of slightly...
think I've got a lovely accent?
I think you haven't talked about me. I think you've got a very, very sexy voice.
I think they're hoping
I was thinking that in your monologue. You're huskier than ever today.
She was very good on the front of the Daily Mail, may I say.
Absolutely.
Very, very good.
I was talking about my good self. You know, but when that kind of thing where people just sort of like you for people being British, they think it's kind of cool, you know, it brings up loads of stereotypes. I think if she comes here, she's going to have comes back here permanently, she's going to have a rude awakening. Because they literally are. By writing Spare, he's very much made himself a Spare.
Yeah, but people are sick of the same old record. They need to reinvent themselves. You know, have a great focus, do the charity work. Not more of this, not more of this poor me. As soon as I hear a voice, my eyes go like the snake in Jungle Book. It's like with Keir Starmer, I just switch off.
Yeah, I think...
Oh, we were going on so well today.
Yes. And the thing is, I just think that if she would just appreciate her privilege and let people hear how thankful she is, and within a few moments of holding that microphone and talking, she's already talking about how everyone's really horrible to me, and it's like, stop.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what he contrasts with. Obviously, not a member of the royal family, but in terms of American royalty, which is presidential families. Take Chelsea Clinton, the Clinton's daughter, who, you know, shares her perspective, who does a lot of stuff about women and girls, but has actually gone and got a proper job and gone and, you know, done real work in the area rather than just jaw. Let's have some war on inequality by checking your privilege to start with. I loved your inner castle as well.
I just want to say to Meghan, look, to just forget about coming back. I mean, save the money on the big PR spins. There's no point. If you're going to come back and still do this moaning and whinging, no one's going to be
You're not going to help if she asks.
No.
I'm not helping
if
this
she asks
time,
to come on GB News, I'm afraid. Well, no, I'd actually say
Talk to the hand.
You probably would say no. Because you know what you're going to hear.
Because it'll be more whingy, and I just couldn't listen to it. And everyone watching would simply switch off.
I tell you who I would have on is Uncle Gary.
I would like Gary on there. Yeah. I'll try to get hold of Gary Goldsmith. You know everybody, Lizzie. You get in touch. She knows him. Lizzie.
She'll text him. I'll make sure she texts him in the break.
Right, OK, if you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up in Royal Roundup time, Lady Victoria Hervey will give us the latest from behind the palace walls. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Cast your vote now.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Well, we've been a constitutional monarchy since the late 17th century, and of course part of that deal is that the monarch, or indeed the close immediate royal family, should not interfere with politics that in any way could be seen to affect individual parties. Now, perhaps one of the most classic cases in the 20th century was Edward VIII, who during his brief reign went down to Merthyr Tydfil in South Wales, met thousands of people who'd lost their jobs in the steel industry. In fact, he shook so many hands in the end he had to change and shake with his left hand, and he said something must be done to get these people jobs. It was taken as a direct assault on the Conservative government of the day. And we could go on to Edward Heath, as many saw it, using the Queen to get us to join the common market, and things the Queen said during the referendum on Scottish separation. And we could, of course, talk about King Charles, who as Prince of Wales endlessly talked about climate change and net zero. But the intervention overnight from Prince William, I think, is the most direct political piece of interference that has international and global implications that I almost think we've ever seen. Prince William is saying to Israel, stop what you're doing. Some will see that as being given a free pass to Hamas. Many young people will say, hooray, he's doing the right thing. But whether he's doing the right thing or not, has he gone just too far with this? Should our future king intervene in this way? I don't believe that he should. I think he's making a very big mistake.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. See, this is Nana Nice. Wherever you've been, so I couldn't resist. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's just gone 20 minutes after 4 o'clock and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. But before we do that, I've had some messages with regard to the monologue. Janet says, she went on American... This is about Meghan Markle, by the way. She went on American TV and slated Kate, Princess of Wales, and the rest of the royal family, but doesn't like it when she's criticised on social media. But it's true, but she could just simply just not read it, isn't it? I mean, Paula says, women have always been other women's worst enemy. They're jealous of each other or venomous if their guy looks at another woman. Yeah, but Paula, what's that got to do with this? Do you think you mean Kate? Maybe. Julie says Harry and Meghan deserted the royal family for fame and fortune based on their titles, which should have been stripped. And Sheila says on this occasion, Meghan is correct. The hatred and vitriol against her is disgusting. Yes, we agree with her. Nobody likes vitriol online, but that's not really right for them to do what they did. That was quite hateful as well. That's the point that we're making. But yes, as I said, I agree. It's not very nice being horrible to people online. But the bottom line is you don't have to read it. It's time for the Great British Debate. So keep them coming. And I'm asking you, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? And this is as pro-Palestine protests fill the streets of the capital once again, and other parts of Britain as well. And now Britain's counter-extremism czar, Robin Simcox, says that these very protests are turning London into a no-go zone for Jews, and he goes on to slam the government for letting extremists go unchallenged for so long. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? Well, first let's head to the protest itself, where our political correspondent Catherine Forster has been watching. Catherine, so it looks quiet now. I'm presuming that everyone has dispersed, but how has the protest been?
Yes, so hello Nana. We followed the protest from its beginnings up at Hyde Park, down past Victoria Station, across the River Thames to the American Embassy behind me. The Met Police insist it has to be all done and dusted by 5 o'clock. So it looks, as you can see behind me, most people have gone down, most of them working their way back now. It does look pretty much like it's wrapped up. I have to say it's been pretty peaceful, what I've seen. It's always the way. The majority of people are not here for trouble. But, of course, with any big march, there is always an element that is out for trouble. And I think the Met Police, it's finishing here in the hope that people will disperse quietly, that they won't gather like they did in Trafalgar Square recently, and that there will be no bother. It's very peaceful, what I've seen. We're getting a bit of shouting here. So I think perhaps time to go back to you.
I think it should as well. And apologies to anyone who's seeing the things behind Catherine. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. If you just tuned in, welcome. Crowds also demonstrated in Glasgow. Joining me now is GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Tony, we spoke earlier. All quiet and it's all dispersed. What else has been happening?
Good afternoon. Yes, well, you know, I would say as far as Glasgow typically is the model of peaceful protesting. Yes, we have lots of face coverings with those masks, with the Palestine flag we spoke about earlier. Yes, we have certain of those chants of "to the river, to the sea," which we now know is seen as heavily anti-Semitic by many, but never really before, and this I've covered quite a lot of the protests here in Scotland, never before have I really encountered any pro-Hamas members of the protest. Until today, that is. Of course, Hamas, who used that "From the River to the Sea" as their unofficial anthem, as it were. Hamas, who initiated the attacks on Israel on October 7th, resulting in the highest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. Well, I spoke to a Dr. Ali El-Husani, who was at the protest today, about his views and challenged them on quite a couple of them. And you have one that says something about Hamas as well, don't you?
Hamas are freedom fighters, not as the media
tell you that they are terrorists.
A lot of people might disagree with you on that.
If they can, we can talk with them, I am sure they will change their mind.
But was it not Hamas that started this escalation on October 7th?
I tell you, in a boxing platform, somebody hit once, again, and so on, 100 times somebody. And this poor guy who is Hamas, once they hit back. They hit back, only one round they hit back, and they became terrorists. You understand?
So there we go. We obviously know that Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organisation and is very much seen as embedding themselves in the people of Gaza as the Gaza Strip, as Israel forces intend to weed them out. But it kind of just goes to show that, you know, defacing paintings and busts of the Queen Victoria and violence and destruction of property isn't always the problem. Sometimes the people that hold these ideals believe them so wholeheartedly that their position and their view is extremely hard to shift.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you so much for your thoughts, and good to talk to a gentleman there and hear his views. Tony Maguire, he's our Scotland reporter. Right, so you've heard the other side of what some people believe Hamas is, even though we all know that it is a proscribed terrorist organisation. So I'm asking, what do you think then? Having heard all that, should the pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? Well, joining me is the chairman of the National Jurist Assembly, Gary Mond, author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid, trade unionist Rob Williams, and former head of public order of the City of London Police, Kevin Hurley. Right, well, I'm going to start with you, Gary Mond. You heard that. What are your thoughts? Should these marches carry on?
No, they shouldn't carry on. They should be stopped. Everyone seems to want to call them pro-Palestine marches. They're nothing of the kind. They are anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish marches. If they were pro-Palestine marches, then these people would be out marching several years ago when Bashar Assad, the Syrian leader, massacred tens of thousands of Palestinians in cold blood in the civil war in Syria. These marches are hate marches. We just have to look at from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is essentially a call for the eradication of the State of Israel, which is totally unacceptable to the vast majority of Jewish people in this country.
I mean, yeah, the projection onto Big Ben, all those things that were happening, terrible. And, you know, I don't understand why the police didn't do anything about it, but it does feel as though something is getting through.
And even worse, you've had them calling Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, they're saying that they're supporting genocide, which is completely untrue. And really, and we've also had a case where someone today, I gather, simply put out a poster saying Hamas are terrorists, which they are, and which the government accepts they are, and he's been arrested. It's terrible.
It's absurd. Well, the police will have to explain that. Let's speak to Kevin Hurley. He is the former head of public order of the City of London. Kevin, do you think that these marches should carry on?
Well, I mean, the real problem with it is, in the UK, with our tradition and our right to peaceful protest, and there are a lot of people who are very upset about what they're seeing going on in the Gaza Strip area, where thousands and thousands of women and children are being killed and maimed, and it's a horrific sight. However, on the other side, of course, is we've got the fact that Hamas carried out an atrocious act on October the 7th, killing over 1,000 Jewish people. Dreadfully, some of the dreadful attacks on women and children were also awful. So it's a very emotive issue to deal with. The problem with it is Hamas are, to most people, or perhaps not most people, it's wrong to say that, they are in fact a terrorist organisation who took over power in Gaza by use of force after the first election, and they effectively stamped on anyone else who attends to oppose them. That's kind of the emotion behind it. But from a police point of view, the police have got to allow people's right to a peaceful protest. Now, if people are saying stuff like, you know, to drive into the sea, I've forgotten the phrase again, whatever it is.
Yeah.
River, Jordan to the sea, such phrases which are clearly genocidal in themselves, anti-Semitic, that is deeply offensive as well, and that should not be allowed, is arguably even at the most minimal level of offence is a breach of the peace, as well as allegations, statements, attacks on Jewish people, which equally should be dealt with. But it comes down to...
Let me bring in Rob Williams, because we haven't got much time, we're running out of time. Hold on a sec, let me bring in Rob Williams. Rob Williams.
Yeah, Rob, I'm from the Socialist Party, and what an absolute distortion this report is. I've just come from this demonstration. I've been on most of these demonstrations. They are massive demonstrations of ordinary people. They are, you know, people are absolutely furious at what they see as a massacre of the Palestinians that is going on.
Can I ask you, Rob, are you Jewish?
No, I'm not Jewish, no.
Right,
But that matters. By the way, the position that we want in the Socialist Party is a socialist solution to the Middle East that protects Palestinians and Israelis. We were on the protests by Israelis against the Netanyahu government, that government that tried to change the legal system to protect their position. We supported those demonstrations, and we are supporting these demonstrations. They are peaceful demonstrations. They're against a massacre of ordinary Palestinians.
What would you say, Rob? What would you say to Gary Mond, who is from the National Jewish Assembly? He will not go into central London because of all the chanting, and lots of Jewish places are having to be protected, their own private security, and so on and so forth. What would you say to them? If you're saying these are so peaceful, Jewish people won't go out.
Well, actually, there were Jewish people, some Jewish people, on the demonstration today, and at a demonstration, we're not in favour of no-go areas. Of course we're not. Like I say, we've supported protests by Israeli people against Netanyahu's government when he tried to change the
but that's all
system.
very well, but the problem is that a lot of people feel these marches have been hijacked.
We are talking about here a mass movement in Britain. The people are absolutely appalled. And let's make it absolutely clear, this Tory government, whose days are numbered, that are hated, they're already trying to attack the right to strike. They're now trying to attack the right to protest. I'm asking people don't fall for this distortion. It's an absolute distortion what you're being fed.
Well, that might be your experience of it, but others haven't experienced the same thing. Gary Mon, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to finish up quickly because I've got to go to the news. So your response quickly to that.
The perception of so many Jewish people is that these marches are hate marches. I'm sure that there are many people who are peaceful on those marches, but you just have to look at some of the slogans used. On a previous march, there was a Magen David put into a rubbish bin, which essentially is blatantly anti-Semitic. And of course, these calls regarding it as genocide, which it patently isn't. It's essentially a response to Hamas terrorists murdering 1,600 people on the 7th of October.
Listen, I've got to leave it there, sadly, because I could talk to you guys for ages, but we're running out of time. Thank you very much, Gary Mond. He's the head of the National Jewish Assembly, also trade unionist Rob Williams, and also former head of public order at the City of London Police, Kevin Hurley. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should the pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? Stay tuned, loads more on the way. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. 4:33, our top stories. Huge crowds have marched through central London and Glasgow, demonstrating against the war in Gaza. Thousands took part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protest demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, speeches were made outside of the US Embassy. Earlier, the Met Police warned that a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime after the counter-terrorism czar said the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. Well, meanwhile, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also said to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. It's hoping to leave Cyprus this weekend. That's after the UK, US and EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor with a temporary port to be built off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. Two MPs have used a social media post to demand more defence spending in further signs of tension within the Tory party. Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Security Minister Tom Tugendhat published an article appearing to criticise the absence of funds in the spring budget. They're calling for an increase in spending to at least 2.5% of GDP. They're citing global risks posed by countries including Russia and China. A new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. The fathers of murdered police officers PCs Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as both humbling and overwhelming. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 36 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. Coming up, socialite Lady Victoria Hervey will be live in the studio to give us the latest from behind the palace walls in my royal roundup. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Should they be allowed to continue? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Is a debate on gender really a far-right issue?
Far right. I'm so bored of that phrase, you know what I mean? Like, anyone who talks about... anyone who acknowledges that there are two sexes is suddenly far right, because that's what Hitler and Mussolini were all about. This question from Shirley is, of course, about Labour. They've been accused of being undemocratic because they pressured a pub into cancelling a debate, and this debate features Kelly J. Keane, who's been on this show a couple of times, and she's a campaigner, and she was just on the panel, and then they got a letter saying that they couldn't do it because Kelly J. Keane apparently attracts far-right groups. Now, they've tried this trick before, but because some awful, ghastly neo-Nazi types turned up near to an event that she was holding in Australia, they kind of tried to blame that on her and suggest that the two were the same thing. They weren't. That was an opportunistic group turning up to... they're not... neo-Nazis aren't pro-feminist. They're not pro an event called Let Women Speak. That's just ridiculous.
New Zealand's TV blurred her touching her zip because they said that her touching her zip was a far-right dog whistle because she's making that symbol.
Yeah, but she wasn't making the symbol, she was just adjusting a zip.
Yeah, and also, this isn't a far-right symbol.
I mean, that was incredible because she obviously wasn't making that symbol anyway. She was just adjusting a top. But this New Zealand news channel blurred out the hand so that they could pretend that it was some horrible ghastly... Yeah. I mean, this is learning stuff, isn't it?
She's talked about having voted Labour in the past. She's so not far right.
But also, even if she were right-wing, which she isn't, why would they be banning a panel where there's a discussion about one of the most important issues of our day? What are Labour playing at here?
They're anti-democratic, aren't they? They're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with things they don't like. I think maybe I'll write to the pub and say I do want to see Kelly J. Keane there.
Yeah, but they won't listen to you if you say that, will they? Because you've got the unfashionable opinion, Chris.
Well, I'm the unfashionable workplace.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, 39 after 4. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time to continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? And all of this after all the pro-Palestine protests filling the streets of London and across the country. And now Britain's counter-extremist czar, Robin Simcox, says that these protests are turning London and other areas like that into no-go zones for Jewish people. He goes on to slam the government for letting extremists go unchallenged for such a long time. So, the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? Let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lauser, also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Matthew Lauser, I'm going to start with you.
So I think that I believe fundamentally in the right to protest. I don't believe in the right to make people feel uncomfortable, and particularly to cause not only members of the Jewish community, but sort of massive disruption to our cities every week. So I think we need to have a compromise. I think that we need to protect the right to protest, but I don't think people have the right to protest on a particular street, on a particular time, on a particular day of the week, every week. So I think, you know, in the past we've seen routes changed. In fact, we saw that on Remembrance Day when the route was changed. We've seen protests where it has to happen in a park, and then at least it's kind of it's kind of enclosed. So yes, I believe in the right to protest. I don't believe in a ban, but I do think that some restrictions need to be put, because we can't have people feeling uncomfortable, either members of the Jewish community or just generally, because people are getting very irate. They're absolutely convinced of their own righteousness on these marches. They don't want to listen, as we've seen with various footage when people challenge them. They don't want to listen to other people. So yes to the right to protest, but within limits.
Lizzie Cundy.
They have to stop. They have to stop. Look, I believe in freedom of speech, but with responsibility. Now, I passed the march. They were still chanting from the river to the sea. They were chanting hateful things. I'm telling you, this cannot go on anymore. I want my city back. I am scared, and I'm not Jewish. My friends that are Jewish are leaving every weekend. I've got certain friends that are Jewish that are leaving the country. They say they feel more safe actually in Israel than they do in this city, and it's got to stop. And not only that, it's costing us, the taxpayer, over 32 million, and it's stopping our police from doing what they need to do, policing. Why don't the protesters pay for this? I mean, then they may think twice about it. And it's affecting local businesses, tourism. It has a knock-on effect so much. My friend who's got a restaurant has to close it every weekend. They're losing business and money. How is this fair? And how is it fair to the Jewish community?
Well, she makes a good point, Matthew Lauser. It's not just about people. Freedom of speech, I can say what I like. And no. What about the freedom of people to run their businesses?
Absolutely, which is why I don't believe that there should be the marches should happen right in the centre of London every week, or the centre of Glasgow, as we saw earlier in the report. So I believe that the marches should be contained. So, for example, I think when they were kind of, you know, in a park, and you can have listen to speeches, be in a park, make your point, and then go, but it's contained and it doesn't get in the way of people's businesses, and also people have a much clearer area if they don't want to be involved in it. So that's my compromise. And I also think we've seen the protests this week in, you know, people going into Tesco's and shouting at Israeli avocados. That's got to stop. And people who slash the painting, quite rightly, will face charges, I hope.
Well, listen, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our Great British Voice, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I wonder if we have a map. Hey! Let's go to see Lee Harris in Bristol. Hey, Lee Harris. OK, Lee Harris, what do you think? Is it time for us to... Should they be allowed to continue?
Look, I just want to be clear. I fully support the right to protest, but this has gone way too far. I agree with both Matthew, who put it brilliantly, and Lizzie on this subject completely. You know, we have had hate marches every single weekend in London, and despite Sunak's pathetic speech asking the police to police the protests, it's getting worse. Counter-extremism czar, what's his name, Robin Simcox, is absolutely correct. London has become a no-go zone for Jews, which is utterly horrific on its own, but it's also become a no-go zone for law-abiding citizens just going about their daily business and having their lives disrupted every weekend by these vile marches. And in my view, as I said to you before, Nana, this is all down to the Met's disgraceful two-tier policing and our terrifyingly weak politicians. And today has been genuinely one of the worst. I've seen open support for Hamas and Islamist extremists chanting support for Houthi terrorists, as we've seen before. And the police stood by and did absolutely nothing. They didn't listen to Sunak when he asked them to start policing protests. In fact, Mark Rowley said, I quote, "We have to police the law as it is, not as others would wish it to be." But he is not enforcing the law as it is. Supporting a proscribed terrorist organisation is illegal in this country, and we see weekly videos and evidence of the Met doing literally nothing when it happens right in front of them. They're empowering the mob, and it's getting worse. And worst of all, Nana, today I watched, and I'm sure you may have seen this yourself. I know you've been quite busy presenting a show today, but I saw multiple police officers forcefully arrest a lone man who was holding a sign that said Hamas is terrorist. I could not believe my eyes. Possibly the most disgusting video that I've seen since the start of these protests. That has to be a watershed moment. Apparently supporting a prescribed terrorist organisation is okay, but if you protest against Hamas, you'll get arrested. I am still absolutely furious after watching
I don't know
that.
what the police appear to be doing on this one. I don't know why.
It's
they're running.
unbelievable.
They're scared. To me, I think they're scared.
Yeah.
But they're supposed to be the police, and we need to rely on them. Listen, Lee Harris, so succinctly and so well put, as ever. Really good to talk to you. That is our great British voice. He's great, isn't he? Right, well, if you just joined us, welcome. Where have you been? Well, we're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. On the way in the next hour, my great British debate. I'm asking, is it time for a general election? We're going to have fun with that. Next, though, my royal roundup with socialite Victoria Harvey.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It stays cloudy through the rest of the weekend, further rain at times, still quite breezy too. And looking at the pressure pattern, low pressure sits to the south, introducing this strong east-southeasterly breeze across the country, really noticeable, taking the edge off the temperatures. Outbreaks of rain pushing northwards too, and it is cloudy end to Saturday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy at times across parts of Wales this evening, and then overnight we see a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across eastern parts pushing northwards, but generally for everyone a cloudy night, and that will keep temperatures well above freezing for most. 1 or 2 may get to low single figures in any clearer spells. For the vast majority, a cloudy, damp, grey start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and westward, some of this heavy at times. Could be some brighter breaks developing across the southwest of the UK into the afternoon, but this could trigger 1 or 2 heavy showers. But for most of us, it stays cloudy. The breeze still coming in from the east and making it feel quite chilly. Temperatures generally up to around 10 or 11 Celsius, but feeling more like single figures. Into the new working week, it generally stays quite cloudy still. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle pulling in from the North Sea. A few brighter breaks at times in the west. And over the next few days, it generally stays cloudy further. There could be some rain at times, but a largely cloudy, dry picture. Temperatures rising a little too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. Don't forget as well, you can stream the show live on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. And now there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week's been no different. Every Saturday I love to give you a rundown, and who better to do so than Lady Victoria Hervey? Because yesterday the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, joined an International Women's Day panel. The topic was women's representation in entertainment and media. She told them of the abuse that she had while she was pregnant with Lilibet and Archie.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty, it's cruel.
Right, so who better to give you a rundown? Socialite Victoria Hervey.
Hello.
Hello, darling. Right, well, let's start with Kate Middleton, because she's been seen out in her car. I think she was driving, actually, I think before.
Seen with her mother in the grounds of Windsor. I think it's almost like, I don't know if that is an accidentally sort of a photo that was taken or made to look, you know, it's almost like she needs to show people at this point, you know, she's alive. And, you know, she is kind of going to be making her comeback quite soon this month.
Yeah,
so
she's okay. But what about her?
I think it's good that she has been seen, you know, because, like, a lot of people are coming up with all kinds of things, saying what's happened to her. So I think it's a clear sign that she's recovering. I think she's getting ready for her comeback to the public.
And what about Uncle Gary?
Uncle Gary, I'm very surprised he got voted out first. I actually really thought they were going to keep him in, you know, till the end, because I think he's like the biggest name of the show besides Sharon Osbourne, but she's a lodger, so she gets her own room, and apparently, you know, she's a complete, like, separate sort of, she's got her own VIP sort of situation going on, which I think for anyone, that would be amazing to do Big Brother and have your own room. So Gary, I'm very surprised about that. I think the family, the Middletons and the royal family, like, are probably very happy that he's out. But I don't think he's said anything that is harmful, you know, has been any sort of harm to Kate at all.
No, in fact, I think if anything, he's assisted them and been a little PR bomb going off and helping them with some messages to...
I think so. I think it's been a good way to get little messages out to the public, and I think people actually sort of quite liked him.
I liked him. I was very surprised he was out so quickly. I didn't get it. I thought... No. I feel like maybe the royal family had some power there.
Well, maybe it was like, just get him in and get him out and, like, get him to tell us some little things about Kate, everything's fine, and then off he goes. So, yeah, maybe he was never supposed to be in for the long haul.
Very odd. Do you think he's tarnished the rules? I think he's done a good job. I think he's...
Yeah, no, I think he's been good. I think actually, like, he didn't come across badly at all, and he hasn't sort of given away any sort of secrets of any kind.
What about Meghan Markle? She's done a speech now. I feel this is a new launch for her, a new staging of who she is.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, look, I mean, of course, it's terrible to have online bullying, especially, like, someone who is pregnant or has got a newborn. You know, as a female, like, I imagine, like, the woman is going to feel, like, very sort of extra emotional at that point. So, of course, I feel sorry for her in that respect. But, you know, it's always sort of like, look at me and poor me, and I went through this. A lot of people go through online bullying. I don't know what she expected, that it was going to be such an easy ride, like marrying into the royal family. Like, I don't quite understand that.
Well, she can always not read it.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm not even on Twitter. Like, just don't go on to that stuff. Don't look at it.
I don't understand. I mean, it's quite straightforward. But like you said, the first thing you said was you feel sorry for her. She's very good at playing that victim again.
She is. She is very good at playing the victim. And, but, people are just sort of like, I don't think people even digest what she says that much because it's always sort of the same topic of, like, look what happened to me. Look, everybody goes through that kind of situation. I think she needs to just focus on, like, the positive things that she can sort of give back to the community and, not sort of focus on just herself.
Well, you think she could, but I don't think she's going to be able to resist playing the victim. It's been so profitable for her. Lady Victoria Hervey, thank you so much for joining me. That is Lady Victoria Hervey. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Still to come, my Great British Debate in the next hour. I'm asking, is it time to call a general election? George Galloway says that minor parties will have a significant impact on the next general election. Have a listen.
The spread of candidates, challengers, new parties, independent candidates, and so on, is now proceeding like wildfire.
Is he right? Stay tuned.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It stays cloudy through the rest of the weekend, further rain at times, still quite breezy too. And looking at the pressure pattern, low pressure sits to the south, introducing this strong east-southeasterly breeze across the country, really noticeable, taking the edge off the temperatures. Outbreaks of rain pushing northwards too, and it is cloudy end to Saturday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy at times across parts of Wales this evening, and then overnight we see a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across eastern parts pushing northwards, but generally for everyone a cloudy night, and that will keep temperatures well above freezing for most. 1 or 2 may get to low single figures in any clearer spells. For the vast majority, a cloudy, damp, grey start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and westward, some of this heavy at times. Could be some brighter breaks developing across the southwest of the UK into the afternoon, but this could trigger 1 or 2 heavy showers. But for most of us, it stays cloudy. The breeze still coming in from the east and making it feel quite chilly. Temperatures generally up to around 10 or 11 Celsius, but feeling more like single figures. Into the new working week, it generally stays quite cloudy still. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle pulling in from the North Sea. A few brighter breaks at times in the west. And over the next few days, it generally stays cloudy further. There could be some rain at times, but a largely cloudy, dry picture. Temperatures rising a little too.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Coming up, this week's difficult conversation as it's confirmed that police will not investigate J.K. Rowling over the misgendering of trans activist India Willoughby. And then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to call for a general election? But first, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. And we start with some breaking news. The UK was involved in an operation overnight in the Red Sea. The Defence Secretary confirmed that HMS Richmond used missiles to shoot down 2 attack drones, repelling an attack by Iranian-backed Houthis. In a post on social media, Grant Shapps said the UK and its allies will continue to take the action necessary to save lives and protect the freedom of navigation. We'll bring you more on that story as we get it. Well, huge crowds have been marching through central London and Glasgow, demonstrating against the war in Gaza. Thousands took part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protest demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, speeches were made outside of the US Embassy. Earlier on, the Met warned a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime. That's after the counter-terrorism czar said that the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. Well, meanwhile, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid from getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also set to leave Cyprus this weekend. That's after the UK, US and the EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor with a temporary port being built off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. 2 Tory MPs have used a social media post to demand more defence spending in what's being called further signs of tension within the party. Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Security Minister Tom Tugendhat published an article appearing to criticise the absence of funds in the budget for defence. They're calling for a spending increase to at least 2.5% of GDP. They're citing global risks posed by countries including Russia and China. The mothers of 2 teenagers killed in Nottingham say that they've lost faith in the justice system. Valdo Calocane was handed a hospital order for manslaughter by diminished responsibility after stabbing 19-year-old students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, as well as school caretaker Ian Coates. That was in June last year. The teenagers' parents have now criticised the police and Crown Prosecution Service, telling The Times that they felt foolish for thinking they would see justice properly served. Well, a police cordon remains in place at 3 branches of the Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull and East Riding in Yorkshire. That's after Humberside Police received a report of, quote, concern for care of the deceased. That was on Wednesday. A direct line has been set up for anyone who may be affected. A London fertility clinic has had its licence to operate suspended due to significant concerns. The Telegraph newspaper says the centre had been reported to police over fears that embryos were being destroyed. The Homerton Fertility Centre in East London has admitted errors in its freezing processes, which led to some embryos either not surviving or being undetectable. The suspension means the unit will not be able to accept any new bookings for treatment, but existing patients can still access its services. A new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. Fathers of murdered PCs Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as overwhelming.
I'm very pleased and for all the police that lost their lives in service, that they're now getting recognition by the state. And for all the families involved, it'll be a privilege to have them.
It's been nearly 3 years campaigning for me, and you know, for it finally to be announced, it's I think in one respect it's humbling but overwhelming, but so pleased for everybody, and not just the police officers as well, as we found out, it's for everybody in public service, and that'll mean a lot for those families, I think.
Well, finally, Meghan Markle says she suffered hateful and cruel online abuse while she was pregnant. Speaking at an event in Texas, she criticised the toxicity and lack of humanity on the internet and across other parts of the media.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing in social media and online was when I was pregnant with Archie and with Lily and with a newborn with each of them. And you just think about that and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty, it's cruel.
Right, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts. How do you do that? Well, you scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Still to come, my difficult conversation today is about misgendering. Well, police have confirmed that they will not investigate J.K. Rowling over misgendering trans activist India Willoughby. But as this follows International Women's Day, I'm asking, are women being erased? Then from the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to call a general election? George Galloway has said that minor parties will have a significant impact on the up-and-coming election trajectory. Reform appears to be drawing voters from the Conservative camp. Theresa May's gone. The speculation of Boris Johnson returning. So do we need a new big dog at the helm? And on this week's clip bait, what happens here?
This one's gonna get rough, okay? I am here to rebuke the black people who live in 2023, in the 21st century, and talk about slavery constantly as if it happened to you.
You might want to stay tuned for the rest of that. You won't want to miss this. As ever, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. So now it's time for this week's difficult conversation. Police will not be pursuing a complaint against author J.K. Rowling for misgendering trans broadcaster India Willoughby, determining that Rowling's comments did not meet the threshold for criminal action. Of course they didn't, because he's a man, not J.K. Rowling, India Willoughby. The decision comes after Willoughby filed a complaint alleging that Rowling's refusal to refer to her as a woman constituted a crime. However, legal experts question whether the remarks constituted an offence under UK law. Well, this spikes the ongoing debate over trans rights and freedom of speech on social media platforms. But coming so quick to International Women's Day, I'm asking, are women being erased? Well, first, I'm going to speak to my panel because they're still with me, and then we'll go to author and broadcaster Dr. Pam Spur. But first, what do you think? I'm going to start with you, Lizzie Cundy.
Yes, well, as it was International Women's Day yesterday, and one of my greatest things is that I am a woman, and I'm proud of it. But look, the trans community need to be treated with kindness and understanding, without a doubt. But this... I mean, J.K. Rowling was just saying the truth. Why the hell would the police be involved with this? I'm sorry, India. Look, in 300 years' time, if India's bones dig up, it will be a man. It's biological. That's a biological fact.
Yeah, Matthew Lanza.
So I don't think it was a hate crime, but I do think that it was showing a lack of respect because Holly Willoughby has India Willoughby. Sorry, I'm getting my Willoughbys.
She is a woman.
Absolutely. Apologies to Holly. Sorry, I'm getting my ITV Willoughbys mixed up. So India has transitioned and therefore is legally a woman. So out of respect, we should respect that. But I don't think that misgendering is a crime.
Well, hold on. But how about for those of us that we are called gender critical, even though we're actually speaking the truth? I don't understand why we are being critical. But I just don't see why I must be forced into somebody else's delusion, even if they've had all the bits that look like a woman, because to me as a woman, that's a slight insult. That objectifies what a woman is. We are now an object, which is just, you look like one because you've got boobs and you've got hair and you've got whatever, but you're not one. I feel it's slightly objective.
Well, I think, so my view is that's why you shouldn't be criminalised for doing so, but that, my personal choice would be, if somebody has transitioned, to use the pronouns of the gender they've transitioned to. But I think it should be, if it's up to individuals ultimately, then it's for people to judge the individuals on what they do.
But what about women's rights? What about women wanting to feel safe in changing rooms, for example? Yeah. And just because there's a man that now puts on a dress, says I'm a woman, it doesn't make it right. I just don't think it's fair. We're being erased, and if we say anything, we feel silenced and intimidated.
I think
can I just bring you back to something you said?
Of course.
You said you believe in single-sex spaces.
Yes.
So in your view, India Willoughby is a woman, so India Willoughby can enter our space as a woman.
So I'm against self-identification.
No, but she's had the transition. You said legally she's a woman.
So
this is the problem.
So I think legally, because the number of people who transition is very, very small, and obviously they have gone through the process. I personally believe that if you transitioned and you've got a gender recognition certificate, you should be allowed in the
So should India be able to compete against me in sports, for example?
I think it's up to individual sports to take the decision.
Listen, Matthew.
But that's their DNA. Men are so much... You know that. It's in the DNA that men are stronger, faster.
Well, that's why individual sports have made those decisions.
It's not fair. It's not fair on women.
I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's fair. And I think that if you are a male and a biological man, then that's what you are and will always be. You can be a trans person, and obviously that's totally up to you. But I don't think you can force people to enter your reality, which isn't theirs, because what about their reality? But I'm joined now by presenter and author Dr. Pam Spur, and also transgender teacher and journalist Debbie Hayton. I'm going to start, Debbie Hayton, with you, because what do you make of what's happened with India Willoughby, where she tried to get... And I think this is a tactic to scare people so they don't dare say the wrong thing, but what do you think, Debbie?
Well, yes, I think India Willoughby's behaving in a ridiculous manner, and she's gone on and on and on, and clearly J.K. Rowling's just had enough and said what she thinks. And fair play to J.K. Rowling for that. And India Willoughby needs to realise that if you go on Twitter and start harassing people, sometimes they might come back at you, and that's what Twitter's like.
But why is she so soft, so sensitive to that? I mean, if you believe what you believe, you're entitled to believe what you believe, but it just feels that, oh, you've hurt my feelings so much, I'm going to call the police on you. Dr. Pam Spur.
Yes, I think it's absolutely a waste of police time. I have to disagree with your first guest, Matthew, about pronouns, because when you start using someone's preferred pronouns rather than their sex-based pronouns, then that is the first chink in the fence. And that then lets in other things like men who identify as women coming into our spaces. Now, one thing I hope the Northumbria police will do is not record what happened between J.K. Rowling and India Willoughby as a non-crime hate incident, so an NCHI, because technically, as the four-stater founding ruling found, you can, within law, have gender-critical beliefs, and no one can compel you to call a man a woman. So that for that reason, it should not be registered as non-crime hate incident, and also because Willoughby has multiple times said the most awful and vile things about Rowling. And as the legislature says, if there's already a grievance between parties, it should not, like in this sort of case, be recorded as a non-crime hate incident. J.K. Rowling is not even guilty of that.
You know, I'm concerned that we're going down a pretty dangerous path, in particular for women, because, you know, I personally as a woman, I feel quite angry when I know that somebody isn't a woman and they're forcing me to use their pronouns. I'll literally almost not do it because they're forcing me to. Whereas for you, you know, Debbie, I will call you a she or whatever pronoun you want me to call you because of the way you carry yourself, and I respect you. But if somebody isn't what they're telling you they are, should they be forced to go with the pronoun, Debbie?
Well, nobody should be forced to ignore their own senses, the evidence of their own eyes. That's what pronouns are there. Pronouns are there to describe what we see to other people. And we move away from that, and it just becomes ridiculous, and it leads to absurdities. It really does. So, you know, I would just echo what's been said. There's been no hate here. There's been two adults had a disagreement on Twitter, and one of them's gone running to the police. It's like little children who go running to teacher. It's not impressive at all what's happened.
You know, I don't know where we go with this because I'm concerned. I want to bring in Matthew Laza. Where are you looking, Matthew?
Sorry.
You're looking somewhere strange.
Am I looking in the right place now?
That's better, Matthew. Right, so yeah, no. Matthew Laza, you've heard that. You were almost saying that you believe in single-sex spaces, but then you were saying that someone like India Willoughby should be allowed in the women's space, in a single-sex, should be considered as a woman.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't believe in self-identification, which is what the Scottish Government tried to do and then was blocked. But I do believe that anybody who's had a gender recognition certificate who is legally transitioned, like Debbie, I would use the pronouns of the gender which they've transitioned to. And you know, but I don't believe in making it a hate crime.
No, Lizzie Cundy.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, what about J.K. Rowling could have a case against India Willoughby to say, you know, all the slurs that, you know, I said on X and all the social platforms, that's out of order. I'm afraid, look, I'm just sick that now we all feel like silenced and intimidated if we speak out about this. It's not fair. Women's rights are being erased, and I want to feel safe if I'm in a changing room and not have to worry if there is just, say, a man with a dress on saying they're a woman. It's not right.
Well, see, that's the thing, Pam. This is the thing, Pam. We can't say to someone, how far have you gone along in the transition and all that? So that means that a man who dresses and appears to be a woman, as in with his external appearance, can enter those single-sex spaces. And, you know, I spoke to somebody who is a transgender woman, and I said, I was talking about single-sex spaces, and she said, oh, well, no one's ever bothered me before, and that's because, frankly, women are scared. I'm not going to ask a trans woman or say, look, you shouldn't be here, or I'm not going to do that, ever. Pam?
Well, it's by the by how much someone presents as a woman. What we're dealing with is things like male pattern violence. So even if a man has gone to extraordinary lengths to try and become the most feminine-looking woman he can possibly be in his imagination of what femininity is, we are still dealing with men, biological males, who have much more, who commit, you know, 98% of violent crime in our society, you know, and you know, the same amount of sexual violence. So we're still putting ourselves at risk for the feelings of men. Now, what I say to people identifying as trans is, please do whatever you want to do. You can dress how you want, but please respect women's boundaries and our rights. And as I say, you can walk down the street in the flounciest of dress. That doesn't matter. That's fine. I celebrate your fashion. I love that. But respect our spaces, respect our sport. And we will never go around the fact that these are men we are talking about, essentially, at the core of this issue.
A final word to you, Debbie.
Yes, I'll just say something about spaces and pronouns. Use whatever pronouns you like to describe me, the person you see. But when it comes to spaces, I won't use women's spaces. And I think one thing to be said about that is if good trans women stay out, then bad trans women stand out.
Yeah, that's a nice one to end on. Thank you so much to Debbie Hayton and also Dr. Pam Spur and my panellists Lizzie Cundy and that other guy with the glasses, Matthew Larser. I'm teasing. This is GB News. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 19 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, listen, it's time for our latest Great British giveaway. But first, it was Phil from West Yorkshire. And now we have our latest winner, Charles from Stoke-on-Trent. He won 18 grand in cash. Here's the moment Charles found that he had won.
Charles, I have some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British giveaway.
Oh, slippy neck. Oh, dear.
You've won £18,000.
Flippy neck. That's a big surprise. Flippy neck fire. I don't know what to say.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
I want to call them up. I'll say, yeah, and let me do that voice. I'll be like, yeah. I'll probably give someone a heart attack, though, so I'll probably best not do that. But listen, now your chance to enter our latest Great British giveaway for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, £12,345 in cash and a whole host of seasonal treats.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. You could be the next winner. But coming up, my quick-fire quiz. My panel will be joining me with the latest top stories of the week. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to call a general election?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, I'm sure you have seen this video that went viral this week, and if you haven't, well, I think you're going to enjoy it. This is a firefighter leaning on a fence whilst watching a trapped driving instructor's car sink in 4 feet of floodwater. Looks very comfortable there, doesn't he? Just leaning against the fence.
Just chilling, just relaxing. Yeah, there were there were in fact 2 Essex fire and rescue crews, an ambulance and a police car parked near the sinking vehicle, but they wouldn't enter the water because they had to wait for specialist crews who were trained for the water depth.
Well, 2 people who weren't going to sit back and watch were these 2, Jack and Danielle Price, who took it upon themselves to rescue the submerged driver. And Danielle joins us now. Very good morning to you, Danielle, and you are a hero, an absolute hero. What happened in this video? Make sense of it for us.
So we were filming in the area for our YouTube channel, and we've seen the fire brigade come through. I was actually out at 5 o'clock in the morning with my husband, Jamie. We know it always happens there, as you can see, and it was clear. We've seen the fire brigade come through, we've followed them, and they're just standing around as if nothing's happened. In the clip, it says he's fine, he's on his phone, and then sort of walked away. But what they failed to realise is when my partner actually opened the door, as you can hear, he's on the phone to the emergency crew in panic, thinking he's going to sink. So we could not just sit there and watch. He's absolutely terrified.
Yeah, poor bloke. Well done, you. Do you reckon this is health and safety gone mad?
It is, because although I do sympathise with them, they are so red-taped, but surely sort of common sense has to kick in as open the door.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? It's coming up to 25 after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I will read some of your emails on the marches. Bill on the marches says, Palestine marches, yes, this is supposed to be a democracy. Mark on the marches, I think these protest marches in London should not be allowed to continue. There's a lot of it. I'll read more, but first it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to call a general election? George Galloway says that minor parties will have a significant impact on the next general election. Take a listen.
The spread of candidates, challengers, new parties, independent candidates, and so on, is now proceeding like wildfire. If I tell you that I have now in my pocket more than 300 prospective parliamentary candidates, all paying their own election expenses, by the way, because we can't pay them, more than 300 Workers' Party parliamentary candidates. Imagine that.
If you want to hear the rest of that, then make sure you join me after my show tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Neil Oliver's show will be on, and you can hear the full interview there with his comments as they come as polling shows reform has hit a new high and support for the main parties has slipped significantly. Even Tory MPs don't seem to have confidence in their own party, with 60 announcing they're standing down, the latest being Theresa May. And now there's even mounting speculation that Boris Johnson could return to politics because of the growing concerns over Rishi Sunak's perceived shortcomings. So with faith in our politicians clearly at an all-time low, for my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to just call a general election? Well, joining me now, Dennis McShane, former Labour MP, Martin Baxter, CEO of Pollsters, and also Simon Danchuk, former Rochdale parliamentary candidate, and Norman Baker. Right, so I'm going to start with you. Simon Danchuk.
Yeah, well, I don't think he should call a general election now. I take the general view that they should run their course, but I think he might well do. I think Sunak might go in May, not least because some of the points made there by Galloway, that Sunak will think that Labour are a little bit vulnerable in terms of the Muslim vote, which could then go to somebody like Galloway's party, and that might just help some Conservatives get over the line in some key constituencies.
Interesting. All right, Martin Baxter.
Well, Prime Ministers call elections when they think they can win them, and at the moment the opinion polls are very clear that the Conservatives couldn't win them. On the other hand, there may be a little thought at the back of Rishi Sunak's mind that things might get worse, that the lead in, or Labour's lead in the polls goes up month by month at the moment, and so he could lessen the damage perhaps by calling an early election, but there's no sign of that so far at the moment. We'll have to wait and see.
Norman Baker.
Well, quite clearly, the Conservatives are going to lose the election as things stand at the moment, and I think the longer it goes on, the worse the result will be. And the public don't like parties hanging on for grim death. They paid a price in '79, the Labour government with Callaghan. John Major in '97 paid the price, and Gordon Brown paid the price in 2010. So although he will lose now, he'd be wise to go, because actually the country's made up its mind, and the Tories have run out of ideas and run out of road.
But Dennis McShane, doesn't it appear to be getting worse for the Labour Party the longer this is going on? So the longer Rishi Sunak hangs on, the worse it seems to be for the Labour Party. What do you think?
Well, Nana, I don't know if you follow the polls, but they just keep getting better and better and better. My worry is a different one. I think Labour's going to win the election. I was nervous, not sure about that until very recently, but I think now the country's made up its mind. I was there in 1996-7 with John Major. I was there with 2010 with Gordon Brown. We all knew we were going to win in the first 97 election, and we all knew we were going to lose in 2010, as Simon will remember. And nothing's going to change that. I'm more worried about how prepared Labour is, because the Tories are cynically and cold-bloodedly just leaving a scorched earth behind them.
Like the Labour Party did when they took power, the Tories took power.
No, we didn't. The country was actually run quite well, and it was in 97. I mean, Ken Clarke left Labour and Tony Blair. A reasonably working motor. And what we've seen in the budget, I don't want to go into budget details, is Hunt cold-bloodedly and cynically spending money, making promises that could never be met because he doesn't have to meet them. And the Tories hope that will buckle Labour, and he will.
Well, he's stolen Labour policy.
Well, he's still one little one.
Simon.
Well, there's no doubt about it. What's happening here as well for the Conservatives is Reform UK taking a chunk of their votes. So Reform UK are now up to 13% in the opinion polls. They're ahead of the Liberal Democrats, who've been around hundreds of years but are completely flailing around. I'm sure Norman will have a view on that, but they're down to 10%, if not less than that. So Reform's taken a chunk of the Tory votes. But I come back to this point that Dennis hasn't addressed. Will the Workers' Party, Galloway's party, take a chunk of Labour votes in some key constituencies? I think they might well do.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let Norman Baker respond, and I want to...
Thank you. Well, look, I mean, we should be doing better than we are, quite frankly, but we are going to pick up a large number of seats because we're in a good second position in a large number of seats. And the way the electoral system works, which is very unfair on people like Reform, actually, the way that the system works is that people will decide who can beat the Tories. That's what the game's going to be in the election. And they're going to decide it's going to be either Labour or Lib Dem according to where you are in the country. So we will do all right in the election. We should probably do better. But, the Tories are going to lose this. And I think they will lose more heavily because of Reform. I don't think Reform are going to win any seats, actually, or one or two at most. But they're going to do a lot of damage to the Tory party. As for George Galloway, I think it could do damage to the Labour Party because I don't detect a great enthusiasm for Keir Starmer. I think there's a willingness to get rid of the Tories and Labour as a default option, but I don't actually think they like Keir Starmer very much. The latest opinion polling for Starmer is actually very bad. It's minus 9% in approval terms, which is really poor for an opposition leader.
Well, yeah, especially given the conditions that he's under.
Norman, the country didn't like Margaret Thatcher, and they still voted her in.
Your leader, Ed Davey, perhaps he should move on and then shuffle on, and then perhaps other people will and maybe vote for them as well. I want to come back finally to Martin, though. Martin, are you seeing that are you sensing that the Workers' Party from George Galloway could have some impact on maybe the Labour votes?
Well, we've not seen that yet. We've certainly seen in our figures that Reform are taking a lot of votes away from the Conservatives, and that's hurting the Conservatives and their prospects of seats as well. And I agree with Norman Baker's analysis that the Lib Dems may get fewer votes than Reform, but are likely to gain a lot of seats, and Reform is probably less likely to gain seats. George Galloway, at the moment, is a little bit of a wild card. He's relatively new on the scene this time round. We don't have a lot of polling numbers for that. There's the potential for something to happen. There was talk that he might, say, stand against Sadiq Khan in London, but I guess that probably goes by the board now. He's back in Westminster. So one to watch there. But at the moment, the summary is that Conservative votes are going in all directions. They're disappearing from the Conservative Party. They're going to Labour, to the Lib Dems, to Reform, to staying at home, to not knowing what to do. Yeah. So that's the big story at the moment.
OK, so this is a yes or no, because I've got to go to the news. Is it time to call for a general election? Yes or no, Martin?
I'd say Sunak will say no.
Dennis McShane?
Get it over with.
So yes. Simon Danchuk?
No, I would say no. Go the course.
And Norman Baker?
Yes, please, as soon as possible.
Listen, thank you so much for your thoughts. There they are. Brilliant stuff. Right. So that's what they think. What do you think? This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time for a general election? You'll know the thoughts of my panel. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. 5:32. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Our top stories. The UK was involved in a joint operation overnight which saw dozens of drones downed in the Red Sea. The Defence Secretary confirmed that HMS Richmond shot down 2 drones, repelling an attack by Iranian-backed Houthis. The US says in total, coalition forces hit 28 unmanned aerial vehicles. In a post on social media, Grant Shapps said the UK and its allies will continue to take the action necessary to save lives and protect the freedom of navigation. Well, huge crowds have marched through central London and Glasgow today, demonstrating against the war in Gaza. Thousands took part in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign protest, demanding an immediate ceasefire. In London, speeches were made outside of the United States of American Embassy. Earlier, the Met Police warned that a robust plan is in place to tackle hate crime after the counter-terrorism czar said the capital has become a no-go zone for Jews. Well, meanwhile, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee has accused Israel of blocking aid getting into Gaza. Humanitarian supplies are being airdropped as the crisis in the region deepens. A ship carrying aid is also said to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. It's hoping to leave Cyprus this weekend. That's after the UK, US and the EU announced plans to create a maritime corridor, building a temporary port off the coast of Gaza in the coming weeks. And finally, a new honour, the Elizabeth Emblem, has been created to recognise public servants who've died in the line of duty. The fathers of murdered police officers, PC's Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were killed in Greater Manchester in 2012, campaigned for 3 years to secure the award. Bryn Hughes and Paul Bone have described the decision as humbling and overwhelming. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Nana will be back in just a mo.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
For decades, Britain has been dealing with immigration, but for one part of the UK, it is a relatively new experience. GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie has this report.
At the end of April 2023, Ireland's immigration was up by 31%. And over a decade, Northern Ireland's has doubled, with South Belfast being the most diverse. Tracy Kelly is a DUP Belfast City Councillor who deals with the issues in this area on a daily basis.
We have working class communities like Sandy Row, like the Donegal Pass, who are blending in with others who are coming here to work and live and mix. But there is also an issue when there's too many people who can't get housed. That seems to be the main issue that I deal with. When people in their own community who've been born and reared here have to move away because there's a lack of housing.
Takura Makoni represents the African community of Northern Ireland.
I would presume mostly 99% of asylum seekers or migrants and refugees coming to this part of the world would have very little knowledge about the internal dynamics in Northern Ireland. So you find out it's almost like you're thrown in the deep water. To have the cognizance to say, here, I need to pick up that I'm living on a peace line and these guys don't like those guys and maybe these guys can tolerate me and those ones won't. You don't have any idea of that. It'll take you up to 10 years to get a real sense of that because, remember, you're focused on trying to rebuild your life.
To avoid further tensions, should government be looking at the placement of those refugees and migrants?
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. This is GB News. Don't forget you can stream the show live on YouTube or download the GB News app completely for free. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just coming up to 39 after 5. Now, George Galloway says that minor parties could radically alter the next election. His comments come as polling shows that Reform has hit a new high in terms of popularity, while support for the main parties has slipped. And with rumours of Boris Johnson's potential return amid growing dissatisfaction within the Conservative Party, the call for new leadership grows louder. Even Tory MPs don't seem to have confidence in their own party. Theresa May, of course, being the latest in a long run of people who have just decided to just quit after the next sort of election. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to call a general election? Let's see what my panel make of that. Former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza and broadcast from columnist Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie Cundy.
Do you know what? Yes, it is. Put us out of our misery.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We've had 14 years of lies and lies and lies, record high migration, more strikes than you can do in a matchbox. And it's just been an abysmal performance from the Tories, and frankly, I've had enough. Time for a change, reform, I say. But George Galloway, I'm sorry. I mean, George Galloway, he's had more comebacks than the Rolling Stones, and he just is all about headlines and cheap shots.
He's got more than 9 lives. He's a cat.
He certainly has. Oh!
Yeah, but don't forget. Yeah, but it's a sad world in politics when someone that pretended to be a cat can win against another 3 established parties. Well, that's the worry.
Well, I mean, one of the things, George, the thing about George Galloway is he is an irrepressible character. There were unique circumstances in Rochdale. But last week there was a by-election for the mayor of Lewisham, so it's 200,000 people, and the Labour got 21,576, and George Galloway's party came, I think, 5th and got 2,378. You know, unless you can clone George Galloway amongst the 10 biggest Muslim constituencies, it's just George talking through his hat, as he likes to do.
Or through his whiskers.
Or through his whiskers from when he was linked. I mean, absolutely, we need a general election now. The country needs to be put out of its misery, but the Tory party needs to be put out of its misery. I mean, we've seen in the news with them fighting amongst themselves about defence spending, even today. The country's crying out for change, and Labour's ready.
Yeah. Well, you might say that, but some people might not be ready to vote for them.
No, absolutely, and you know, Labour's still got to make its case to the country and seal the deal. And they certainly, there's no complacency. I know from speaking to people in Labour HQ, you know, who'll be busy working this weekend ready for the election. They're not complacent, but it's time for the people to have their choice.
But Captain Flip-Flop, I'm sorry. I mean, for me, I say Farage needs to grab the bull by the horns. We need someone decisive like him, formidable character, and, you know, and
well, if he comes back, I think they might come third.
Look, he took on Nat West.
I think they might come second.
They might come second,
and I think Labour Party are going to be very surprised because I think everything is eating into their vote. The faster we get a general election, the better for them.
The better, exactly.
This show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices. Their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've only got 2 of you. Jonathan Jones, in Cornwall. I'll start with you. OK, Jonathan. Oh, is that the new or the updated mug? You've got the new mug as well. Good.
Yeah, I was doing a tea tasting with GB News earlier. That's why I've got a fantastic new mug. But it'd be disappointing if the election was over too soon, Nana, because we like the idea of it coinciding with the election of Donald Trump in America. And it's going to be such a great fun year, isn't it? Think how many mugs of tea we'll drink this year watching the spectacle unfold.
Yeah, it will be fabulous, won't it? Cheers to that. Cheers to everyone at home. Get your mug of tea, watch the spectacle unfold. Right, let's go to you, Brian Dugan in Solihull. What do you think?
Good afternoon, Nana. I think I'll be drinking something stronger than tea if Donald Trump gets elected. But anyway, to this election, to our election here, yeah, of course it's time. The Tory party, they've run their course. They'd love to say they've fought the good fight and all of that, but they haven't. They've run out of ideas. It's pretty clueless. It's very weak, actually, leadership now that's been shown by the leader. Just say when the election will be. Don't prevaricate. And I agree, Labour are ready. I don't think there's any complacency, but the sooner that the toxic Tory party are ousted from their position right now, the better.
Well, some people would say that they are so disappointed with the Tory party, but they'll still vote for them. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Thank you so much to Brad Dugan in Solihull and Jonathan Jones in Cornwall. Cheers. There you go.
I wondered where all the posh mugs had gone.
Well, that's it. He's not allowed.
Got all the mugs.
He's not supposed to have one of those. Listen, stay tuned. Coming up, it's time for the quickfire quiz with my fantastic panel and the top stories of the week. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It stays cloudy through the rest of the weekend, further rain at times, still quite breezy too. And looking at the pressure pattern, low pressure sits to the south, introducing this strong east-southeasterly breeze across the country, really noticeable, taking the edge off the temperatures. Outbreaks of rain pushing northwards too, and it is cloudy end to Saturday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy at times across parts of Wales this evening, and then overnight we see a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across eastern parts pushing northwards, but generally for everyone a cloudy night, and that will keep temperatures well above freezing for most. 1 or 2 may get to low single figures in any clearer spells. For the vast majority, a cloudy, damp, grey start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and westward, some of this heavy at times. Could be some brighter breaks developing across the southwest of the UK into the afternoon, but this could trigger 1 or 2 heavy showers. But for most of us, it stays cloudy. The breeze still coming in from the east and making it feel quite chilly. Temperatures generally up to around 10 or 11 Celsius, but feeling more like single figures. Into the new working week, it generally stays quite cloudy still. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle pulling in from the North Sea. A few brighter breaks at times in the west. And over the next few days, it generally stays cloudy further. There could be some rain at times, but a largely cloudy, dry picture. Temperatures rising a little too.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome if you've just tuned in. Where have you been? You've almost missed the entire show. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time for Clipbait, a clip that caught my eye today, with social media users quoting to those thinking of playing the race card. Let's just have a listen to this.
This one's going to get rough, OK? I am here to rebuke the black people who live in 2023, in the 21st century, and talk about slavery constantly as if it happened to you, as if you were on some slave ship somewhere, as if you were on some plantation somewhere. You who has never lived 40 years, you who doesn't even remember what life before the internet looked like, you who lives in the softest, most comfortable age in the history of the human race, you who lives in rich countries with rights and opportunities that most human beings on this earth cannot even fathom. And you spend your life crying daily about slavery as something that had nothing to do with you. Some of you even want free money, right? Somebody should come and give you free money because some person who had nothing to do with you was enslaved in Cuba 400 years ago. Shut up and sit down. I hear this all the time. And listen, if any one of you wants to come and deal with me on this one, bring it. I want all the smoke with you. You know who you are, right? You, yeah, slave, bring it.
He's amazing.
You've got to get him on the show.
He missed the last bit. He goes, shut up and sit down. He finishes that.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I'd love to see him debate the Church of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury, after their announcement this week on slavery reparations. So whether you agree with him or not, what an amazing communicator.
Archbishop of Wokery, but he just says it all.
That was right, wasn't it? Well, that's hilarious, wasn't it? But it's true. It's got nothing to do. I was never a slave. I was never a slave. I'm a very privileged young woman. I'm very thankful for this country and being born here.
And a very young woman.
And a very young woman. Very young woman. Right, so now it's time for the quickfire quiz, the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. Joining me, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser and broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, your buzzer, please. Matthew Larser, your buzzer, please. And don't forget to play along at home. Yes? Yes. Right, let's do it. Question 1. Anthony Joshua stunned France's Ngannou, I'll try to say that, with sensational knockout last night. But what round did the knockout come? Was it A, the third, B, the second, or C, the fourth? Matthew Larser.
B, the second.
The second round.
I'm going to say third.
The third round, that's A. Let's
but I know
see
it's
what
B.
we've got here. The answer is it's B, the second round. Matthew, did you watch the fight?
No, I'm not a massive boxing fan, but it was a guess.
It was a guess. Very good guess.
Very good guess.
Confidently delivered as well. Right, closest answer wins.
Change.
How old is this jumper believed to be from the 19th century, found at the National Archives? Matthew Larson.
180 years.
Lizzie Cundy?
150.
150 years. Let's see. The closest answer wins. The answer is 200 years
No!
old. 200 years old.
200 years old?
I'm on the National Archives mailing list and I got an email about that and I didn't open it. I should have done that. I got it exactly right.
But yes, this jumper was found in great condition at the National Archives, discovered among a huge stash of parcels which had been seized from a ship by the Royal Navy in the 19th century.
I'd wear that now.
I would as well. I like that. It put a belt on it. It looked really good. Listen, if you want to see that jumper, go and take a look and download the GBNews app. Right, true or false? A couple from Guildford have just got married on a train after following their first kiss using the rail service. Lizzie Cundy.
True.
False.
False. Let's see. I think you're probably right, Matthew. No, it's true, Lizzie Cundy. 2-1.
Yes.
2-1. Yes, it is true.
I met my first boyfriend on a train.
Oh.
Like love at first sight.
Really? Didn't last long, did it?
No.
Leah Anderson and Vince Smith approached Great Western Railways offering the chance to have the ceremony on board, which they took. Right.
It looks lovely.
Next question, question 4. Which Asian billionaire hired Rihanna to celebrate a wedding?
Asian billionaire?
Oh, I saw the pictures of Rihanna.
Somebody say something. Lizzie Cundy.
I'm trying to think of one. Asian billionaire.
I saw the pictures of Rihanna, but I can't think of the name. Pass.
Sorry, I don't know.
The Anat Ambani, the 28-year-old, is the youngest son of Asia's richest man, Mukesh Ambani.
Oh.
Was a tough one.
It was.
That was a bit of an... Are you
Because our focus was on Rihanna.
I really enjoyed that. Right, final question. Singer Ray. I don't think you can win now, Lizzie, by the way.
No, she technically can't.
She can. She might be, because it's 2-1, so she could. Singer Ray dominated the Brit Awards this year. Oh, Lizzie will get this. But who won International Artist of the Year? Was it A, Taylor Swift, B, SZA, or C, Kendrick Lamar? Lizzie Cundy.
C.
C, Kendrick Lamar. What do you think, Matthew?
A, Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, OK. It was actually
We're both wrong.
SZA. None of them got it right.
We're down with the kids.
We're down with the kids.
Got a clue. Lizzie tried the tactic confidently. Say it confidently.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was out.
You got it wrong.
I was trying to be confident.
It's a victory, Lizzie, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I didn't watch the Brits this year.
I didn't either. It just goes on a bit, doesn't it?
I was elsewhere.
Really? Well, sounds interesting. Sounds intriguing. The SZA, the US R&B musician, whose real name Solana Iman Rao, was named International Artist of the Year at the Brit Awards on Saturday. So there we go. Well, congratulations to my panellists. 2-1 I think it was.
Thank you.
Well done,
I let you win as he was back. I let you win.
Well done to you at home.
Thank you.
Well, on today's show, I've been asking, should pro-Palestine marches be allowed to continue? And according to our Twitter poll, 11.6% of you say yes, and 88.4% of you say no.
Wow.
I'm with you. Thank you so much to my panel, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lowser.
you.
Matthew Lowser, always a pleasure. As ever.
Absolutely.
Good to see you. As a broadcaster and columnist, Lizzie Cundy. And as ever, a huge thank you to you for your company. That's it from me, but up next, Saturday 5, they've moved an hour forward. Then at 8, it's the Saturday Night Showdown with Leo Kearse. And at 9 p.m, it is Mark Dolan Tonight. But I'll leave you with the weather. But before you go, remember, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, George Galloway. You must watch that. Neil Oliver speaks to him about the whole situation with the Workers' Party. And stay tuned and find out all about that. It's tomorrow at 6. But I'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock till 6. Stay tuned. I'll leave you now with the weather. Enjoy.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. As we move into Sunday, it remains cloudy and damp across many areas, and we keep that keen easterly breeze too. And that's thanks to this area of low pressure just sat to the south of the UK, feeding in areas of cloud outbreaks of rain. The tight isobars indicating that brisk easterly wind there too. For the rest of Saturday into the early hours of Sunday, it remains cloudy, further outbreaks of rain, which could be heavy at times across parts of England and Wales, and then pushes northwards as we move through towards the end of the night. Temperatures generally staying above freezing for the vast majority of us due to the cloud and the outbreaks of rain. So for most, it's a cloud